Welcome back to Worlds of Protheka audiobooks. And if this is your first time, be warned. Once you step into Protheka, you'll never want to leave. With beasts who will stop at nothing to protect the women they love, and women who are only just finding out what a real man can be, you'll lose yourself in the dark romance of these fantasy stories. To bring you these free full audiobooks, we have to listen to this platform's guidelines, and they say that Protheka's steamiest scenes aren't allowed. But you can still get them from the unabridged version of any Prothekan audiobook. All you have to do is go to worldsofprotheka.com. With promo code YouTube30, we're offering you the opportunity to get 30% off of any audiobook, ebook, or bundle. We appreciate you subscribing to the channel, as it makes bringing these free full audiobooks to you possible. Don't forget to like and comment to let us know what you think. Protheka's magic is eternal, and this story is just the beginning.
Chapter 1. Inzo. The rain falls fast and heavy. Thunder cracks and lightning splits the night sky. Great forks of light so bright they assault my closed eyes through the undressed window. I shift on my bed, the ache in my arm dull and heavy, and I know it will be another sleepless night for me despite the tiredness that eats at my bones. It is nights like these, and there are many of them on this part of the planet, that I am in danger of losing myself, of returning to the young boy that I once was. The memories creeping into my awareness and picking at my sanity, until all that's left are the charred remains of an orc that was never likely to become the chieftain, and now shuns his clan before it shuns him. Why this still lives inside, even though I am not that small child, is as frustrating as it is painful. A warrior and an elder, I am reduced to this, a quivering orcling in the body of an adult. It is the greatest and most shameful of the secrets that I keep locked away. No one will get to witness it. It would do nothing but add to the humiliation that I already carry in such large quantities. A load so heavy I would finally break under the weight of it. Alone in my home on the outskirts of the settlement, I'm less burdened by the questions and concerns of those that would likely see this part of me if I were to live amongst them. Orcs are a proud species, and there is no honor to be found in this type of weakness. Others cannot be trusted. I should know this more than any in the clan. Not just because I was so cruelly treated by my father, but because neither can I. Chief Loki is my older cousin, and yet I have opposed him at every given opportunity during my time on the council. It is to be expected this was how I was raised, to challenge him, to be the chieftain and not just the next in line. Though he is family, he is still an enemy, and the reason why I now suffer in this way. This is why those in my clan believe me to act only in the interests of myself. Because I am the one that knows and is willing to recognize that oneself is the only person that can be relied upon. But what happens when that self is so damaged it can no longer work for you? There are times such as this when the wounded child within me seems to want to break me, to push me over the edge, so that it can save itself and be free of this torment. Maybe one day I will let it. I feel the crack of thunder in my chest as though it is meant just for me. The beating of the rain on the already soaked ground is like torture, because no matter how heavy it falls, it can never wash away the darkness that lives inside me, even if I were to expose every inch of my scarred skin to it. My eyes are closed, and the memories come back to haunt me like ghosts. Occupying the caverns inside my mind, floating through and ripping out the worst of the recollections to show me time and again, he is always at the center of them. The one whose job it was to guide and protect me, yet who chose to tread a very different path, one that has almost become the ruin of me. His face enters my mind, the words that he bellows into my own, as his spit lands on my skin before the blows. Thwack! You should be the next chieftain! Thwack! You should be the one to take charge of the Burning Sun clan. Thwack! There's no room for weakness like your brother! The words swim around my head, pressing at places that are raw and still bloody, where there are wounds that will never heal but have festered and grown with each passing year. Wounds inflicted for never quite being good enough despite almost killing myself trying. Loki was always a worthy opponent, and every time I failed to overshadow him, I was punished. I still feel the deep ache in my belly and the stabbing pains that made it hard to even walk, the results of being deprived of food for days and nights on end for my failures. The scarred and marked skin on my body is nothing compared to the wounds inside me. The screams I hear inside my own head, my screams, when he burned my back, when he locked me in the basement, void of light but abundant in roaches and rodents. Each kick, punch, and slap, none of it has ever left me, and I am beginning to realize that it never will. Never mind being treated like a son. I was not even treated like an orc. There are humans that have fared better in the most savage of clans and brutal of settlements. There are animals bred for slaughter that have known a more dignified life than I did as a child. The orc that wraps himself up in this fetal position is far from the one I have presented to the world. If Loki could see me now, he would surely be as disgusted with me as my own father was, as repulsed as I am with myself. My spirit is broken, as is my body, and therefore my life holds no purpose. All of the beatings, the torture, the words that took a small child and poisoned him, it was all for nothing. My chest heaves for air. I try to move, to get up from my bed, but my body will not respond to the commands that I give it. I am not sleeping, and I am not awake, but in the in-between place where I am many things. Conscious and unconscious. A boy and a man, where everything that I have endured is as fresh and alive as if it is happening now. The scarred tissue on the back of my head burns as if it is on fire, and I thrash against the furs, falling onto the floor but unable to get up. Reaching up for the pitcher of water on my table, I knock it and it falls, soaking me in its contents. My arm throbs so violently it makes me sick to my stomach, and the little movement that I have in it causes a pain so searing I think I may pass out. It won't be the first time. This is the way that I live, wishing that some days I did not and that it was I that was taken to the great war god, and not my young brother. But that was not to be. Instead, I must endure this torture until I too am called. The memories that have rotted my insides, the thoughts that will always endure as I navigate my way through this world alone. The rain falls, the thunder claps, the lightning strikes, and his voice echoes through my mind. I feel every strike, every kick, every gnaw of every rodent feasting at my bleeding flesh. You will never be good enough to defeat Loki. You are nothing. You too should have died just like your weak-bodied brother. The cries that leave me seem to come from a place unknown. A place so dark and deep and corrupted, I am terrified to even know that it exists, but no one will hear my screams. I am alone and lost, just as I always was, and as I always will be.
Chapter 2. Karissa. I heft the crate of vegetables carefully, trying not to send the tomatoes rolling off the top. It would have been easier to just take 2 trips, but I'm in a rush to get things ready for the celebration. Or is it a party? I'm not entirely sure, but Forest turning a month old is considered worthy of a gathering in the plaza at the centre of the base. Forest represents the unification of orcs and humans. As far as we know, he's the first half-human, half-orc child. His parents, Camille Layton and Irish, have been so kind to me. I wish I could have been there during the birth, but I didn't become part of this community until 3 days later, when the Burning Suns clan rescued me from the bunker. I'd grown up in the world after the orcs had arrived and the bunkers were built. While there are many people who would try to paint orcs as monsters, I know the truth. Humans are the real monsters. I knew that before I'd ever seen an orc. I don't know what it is like in other bunkers, but in mine, I was very isolated in my own little living hell. Now that I'm out of there, I don't like to think about it, but I still have nightmares at times. Women and girls were treated like commodities and possessions there, and I had the misfortune of growing up to be pretty and catching the eye of the bunker's leader, Boyd. He was a sadistic jerk who delighted in tormenting me. Whenever I tried to resist, he always used the threat of other men against me, telling me how lucky I was to be his instead of community property, as so many other women were. Then Boyd made the mistake of pissing off the burning suns. I'm not sure what he did, but once the orcs learned of how the women were treated, Irish led a raid on the bunker. I hadn't realised then that all the things I heard about orcish brutality were gross generalisations or outright fabrications. I was scared of what they might do to me. But I was less scared of what they might do to me than I was of what Boyd did to me all the time. And so, I shot Boyd with the gun he gave me to defend our home with. By the time the orcs found me, I was ready to die. I don't know what would have happened to me had I not surrendered to the orcs or refused their offer of shelter. I don't know if the bunker dwellers would have realised I was the one who shot Boyd or not, but there's no way my life would be better had I stayed with the humans. Now, I try to do everything I can to help make life better for the orcs. I work a lot of odd jobs that need doing. Today, that just happens to mean carrying a bunch of vegetables to celebrate the life of the first orc and human child. I don't know all the ins and outs of orc culture yet, so I don't know if 1 month signifies something special or not, but I'm not objecting to a chance to have a gathering. I set the crate of vegetables on a table, managing to catch one of the tomatoes that rolled off the top before it falls to the floor. "Good catch," Camille says. Camille stands in the centre of the action, directing things with baby Forrest in a sling in front of her. He takes much more after his father than his mother. I haven't had the chance to see many other orc babies, so I don't know if they share the chubby cheeks and all-around pudge a human baby does, but Forrest certainly has those in spades. I don't know if I'll get a chance to compare how he looks to another half-orc, half-human baby soon or not. There are rumours that other orcs are taking human bedmates, the chieftain for one. Though he and Mary, another refugee, claim that there is no romantic interest between them, few believe it, and rumours have been spreading like wildfire. "And how's this little cutie?" I ask. "He's doing fine," she answers. Camille is beautiful, but I can read the lines of exhaustion on her face. Besides being the mother of a 1-month-old, she's also managed to arrange this party which looks fantastic. Some of the food that won't spoil has already been laid out on tables under colourful paper lanterns. And there are beautiful flower arrangements everywhere. "And how's Mama doing?" "Tired, but okay. Thanks for asking." "Is there anything else I can help with?" I ask. She starts, but then Forrest starts fussing loudly. "I think he needs a change." "I can do that." "Oh no, I've got it. Thank you for the offer. But would you be willing to help with setting out the last of the flowers while I go change him?" "Not a problem." As she leaves, I wave to her and to the baby, who takes absolutely no notice of me. I join a small group of people who are finishing off some remaining flowers and setting them out. As I copy the layout of another arrangement, I can't help but shake the feeling that we're being watched. At first, I try to dismiss it as a lingering bit of paranoia from my days in the bunker when, even as Boyd's woman, I always had to be on alert. But I can't shake the feeling. I surreptitiously scan the plaza under the guise of checking my flower arrangement against the others, when I see a silhouette of someone standing, half concealed behind a wall watching people as they work. I feel a slightly rising panic, but I don't want to gain a reputation for spooking easily. It's just that whoever it is has started to give me the creeps. I hope that I'm just feeling overly protective of the community I'm part of now, but better safe than sorry. I call Glasha, a young orc woman, over. She and I have started to develop a friendship, so it's not entirely random for me to ask for her help. "What's up?" she asks. "I forgot something at my house. Could you place the arrangement for me? I told Camille I could do it, but I've got to go take care of something. I shouldn't be gone long." "Not a problem," she says, waving me away. "I'm done with all mine anyway, and I'm starting to get bored. I just want this party to get started. Are you excited?" I can feel the way she's trying to pull me into a conversation, and while I'd love to get to know her better, There's a shadowy figure I have a burning need to investigate. I'll be back soon, and we can keep each other entertained until then. Hurry back, she says, taking the flowers from me. I sneak around the block, trying to circle behind the mystery lurker without startling them or letting them know I'm onto them. When I come around to the other side of the building, I can definitely tell it's a he now, is still standing there, watching the party getting set up with narrowed eyes. I angle my approach, trying to make it so that if he tries to run, he'll have to get past me or run out into the plaza where he'll be seen. Not that I think I'd have much luck with stopping him if he did want to run past me or even through me. But I could get lucky. Granted, the best luck would be this person just being an ill-tempered and socially awkward orc. I take a deep breath, making sure that my voice won't shake when I ask, "Who are you?"
Chapter 3. Inzo. The months have fed the loneliness in me, despite the need to keep my secrets and therefore myself away from others of my kind. My home is more than comfortable, an old mansion near the west border that I've made my own, a place where I can live away from the prying eyes of others, the sanctuary that I never had as a child. Now, as I look upon the community that I once belonged to, there is a sense of loss, a feeling that I'm more than used to. There is a buzz about the place as decorations are hung and food is prepared for the celebrations of birth. As any good chieftain must do, Urish and his mate are to welcome a new child, no doubt one of many that they will produce, and will grow to the leadership in this clan for generations to come. I hear those who are busy with the preparations talk about the new orc-human child, one that has been named Forest, and I repeat the words softly to myself. Forest, the first child of this clan to be born of an orc and human partnership. It has been spoken about, with rumors that other clans have bred with humans, but never did I think I would see a day when it would happen here, and with an orc such as Urish, the mad dog of all people. Forest. It hits a place inside me, a soft place tainted by the memories of a boy that did not deserve and receive such love and celebration. No one cared for that boy, aside for the elders that fawned over me, knowing that one day I may become their chieftain. If only they had known, they could have saved their energies. The leadership seemed always to have belonged to Loki, despite how much my father and I craved it, despite how much I covet it still. It seems that life has moved on here at the base. Now new members are being born into the clan, whereas I will be forgotten. My cousin Loki has visited me on occasion, offering assistance should I need any, asking if I am well and if I would like to take more of an active role on the council. He has even offered the assistance of the humans that he now has at the base, those who are skilled in the healing arts. It may very well be that he is genuine in his offer, but all it brought was more humiliation, that I should need to humble myself before him so that he could heal his weak cousin. I would rather die 1,000 deaths than ever agree to such a thing. Of course, I have refused everything that he has offered, knowing that he is a far better orc than me. If it were the other way around, I would have just left him to rot in his den of shame and self-pity. There is no place for such things as an orc, and this is certainly not something that a chieftain should be concerning himself with. A chieftain's role is to be strong and to strike out weakness, not to actively encourage it. My rage grows as I think about it. Just like my father haunts me, so too does Loki. There has never been a time when I have been free of him. He was always there, and still is, parading his greatness before me, taking pity on me, taunting me with his success as a chieftain. We will always be enemies, just as our fathers were. While he is alive, I will never become the chieftain of the Burning Sun clan. And while I am alive, I will always be in his shadow, perhaps one day stepping out of it to claim what is rightfully mine, though. As the weeks, months, and years go by, this becomes less and less likely. I heave out a heavy breath, deciding that I should leave and return to my home. I don't need to look upon this and add to the torture that I already endure. It is plenty enough without knowing that the clan I have been born into cares little, if I am alive or dead. Who are you? Turning, I am shocked to see that a human female has crept up behind me. It seems as though my senses have become useless too. I am surprised to see that she does not seem to be fazed by my presence, though she still keeps her distance. In fact, there is a look upon her face that suggests she may even challenge me. Gazing into her eyes, I feel no recognition. Perhaps she's one of those that have been rescued recently from the settlement that Loki told me about when he visited. There was pride in his voice when he told me about that mission, as though I should commend him for bringing weak-bodied humans into the clan. Loki, the great chieftain playing savior to our enemies. I have little patience to get involved in any conversation and turn to leave, marching quickly through the tall grass as she scuttles behind me. She shocks me again by grabbing my arm as she catches up with me, and instinctively I lash out by pushing at her small frame. I turn to see her face frozen in a stunned expression, but she is still standing and does not seem hurt. I sigh with relief, glad that I have been able to control my strength. I do not need the ire of Loki or the death of a human female on my conscience, as well as everything else. You should not sneak around an orc nor try to grab him from behind. I could have killed you, I snap. She straightens, her mouth becoming hard and stubborn. Who are you? She asks, her eyes narrowing. I haven't seen you on the base before. Her indignation surprises me, and yet still she continues, determined to question me until she receives an answer. Who on earth is this woman? You seem suspicious. You should state your name and where you reside, or else I'll call the guards and have you arrested, she declares. Is this human serious? My jaw almost hits the ground, this being the first time that a human female has ever spoken to me in such a way. Humans are becoming much bolder since coming out from underground. It would seem a sign that maybe we should keep them there. For the first time since I can remember, something creeps up from behind the shadows of what haunts me. Like the sun poking through the clouds after the storm, it ignites something inside me that has long remained hidden. I step closer to her, desperate to look upon this woman that has sparked such interest. Tall, not compared to me, but by human standards, with long dark hair that is twisted into a braid. Her features are prominent, huge brown eyes and a full rosy mouth. Slowly I rake my eyes up and down her frame, noticing the curves of her body, the hips that protrude and her chest that swells beneath her dress. She steps back, and now I can sense that there is fear there after all. She may be bold, but she is not stupid, and will know what an orc like me could do to something as small and frail as her. Still, she does not back down. Her head is held high, and the confident look on her face does not slip. You're... But I am unable to finish my sentence, another voice cutting in before I can know more from this woman. Enzo!
Chapter 4. Karissa. Inzo, an orc calls from a distance. My head whips in the direction of the speaker. The head of security at the base, Jorgen, approaches, looking confused at our clandestine gathering at the edge of the settlement. But he recognizes this brute of an orc that's slinking around the shadows of camp, which means he's one of their number. I bite back a grimace as Jorgen looks at me, then back at Inzo. I didn't expect you'd be out and about tonight, especially with the celebration going on, and... As he speaks, I slip back a few paces. This has nothing to do with me any longer, and the sooner I'm away from that brute, the better. But he doesn't give me the chance to escape, catching me in a secure vice. He yanks me in, so I'm forced to feel the heat rolling off him. He ignores Jorgen for me, that scarred face crumpled with a frown. Where do you think you're going? Away from you, I hiss under my breath. The exchange has halted Jorgen mid-sentence, and his gaze lands on me again, this time with more concern etched in the lines of his face. What's going on here? Mind your own business, Inzo barks, squeezing my arm until it aches. He turns his full attention back on me. And you need to do as you're told, human. I don't take orders from you. Inzo, Jorgen protests, stepping forward as if to defend me from him, If she wants to leave, let her go. Loki will not appreciate this type of treatment of our new... Do you speak for our chieftain? Inzo's tone is a sharp thing that cuts through the air. When a healthy silence falls over us, he lowers his voice to something confidential. I didn't think so. This one caught my eye, and I intended on keeping her for a little while to play around with her. Is that a problem, Jorgen? His words make my insides churn with disgust. Jorgen must have seen the frightened look on my face, because his expression darkens. Humans are not playthings, Inzo. You should know better. Yeah, I protest, trying to yank free of his grip. That only serves to make him shake me again, rattling me to my bones. There's a grin that spreads across his face, and it unnerves me more than his hot breath washing over me. Good luck trying to stop me. I think Jorgen is about to lunge, but he grits his teeth instead, his jaw working in frustration. I reappraise this Inzo, wondering what is so terrifying about him that his own clansmen won't go against him. The head of security, no less. Jorgen appears to want to help, but what the brute said has made him reconsider. Is Inzo stronger than even his gruff appearance implies? With a chuckle, he turns from Jorgen and moves to drag me off. No matter how I protest, he refuses to let me go. I look back to find Jorgen, staring hard at the back of Inzo's scarred head. I thought you changed after what happened, he shouts, drawing attention to my struggle. We both halt in our steps, and I feel Inzo stiffen. His grip is tighter than ever, making me buckle with the pain. I claw at his meaty fist, trying to rend myself free to no avail. When his bright gaze lands on me, my heart skips a beat. Something about his expression smooths too soon, and he throws an easy glance back at Jorgen. Has a leopard ever shed its spots? Even though he's feigning at nonchalance, there's something deadly in his expression. It doesn't help that Jorgen decides to square up to him, a fire burning in his own eyes as they meet, nearly nose to nose. I'm trapped against Inzo, certain I'm going to die. Orcs are barbaric creatures. I've seen how fatal their fights can be, and this bastard won't let me go. No matter the outcome, I'll be the first to perish if they clash. I squeeze my eyes shut and pray that one of them backs down, though I know it's a long shot. They're not all that keen on surrender. Nothing is said between them for a long moment, the air thick with potential slaughter. I brace myself against Inzo. I have nowhere else to go as I hide my face against his thick arm. It leaps at my touch, and I think he begins to soften when Jorgen blinks first. He takes a step back, scowling in his defeat. You will be certain that the chieftain will hear about this, Inzo. You cannot do whatever you please. It appears I can, he retorts, gloating at his small victory. Run along now, little rat, and go tell our chieftain how his favourite guard lost his nerve. Jorgen spits on the ground between them. Inzo only grins at the gesture, pulling me in tight. Don't worry, Jorgen assures me, looking me over as if to memorise my appearance before backing up a few more paces in retreat. I won't let anything happen to you. With that, he takes off, leaving me alone with Inzo. That's it, I think. He's just running away. A chuckle escapes him as he glances to where Jorgen ran off to, then back at me before throwing a glance in his direction. He's got balls of steel, huh? I can feel eyes on us, and I know there are others who watched, but didn't say a word during the brief altercation. We're far enough away from the celebration that at least we haven't ruined Camille's night, but that doesn't mean that word won't spread of how I was taken by the scum of their clan. Is he intent on tarnishing my reputation? I tug but find no purchase in his grip. I hope that wasn't your knight in shining armour, he continues, ignoring my protests. Because that's one hell of a disappointment if he were. Leaving you all alone like this? Let go of me, I say, keeping my voice low. You've made your point. A thick eyebrow rises in curiosity. And what point is that? I hate him already. He's infuriating for an orc, and I wish I had never put myself in harm's way to ensure the safety of the clan, if they were merely going to treat me like a commodity to be passed around to their lowest caste. You're a big, strong orc that won't let anyone mess with you. We get it, I say a little louder, so the others can hear me. They're all cowards in the face of danger, hardly different from humans when it comes down to it. You won. He scoffs at my profession, leaning in as if to get a better look at me. You don't understand half of it, human. Inzo straightens as if he's suddenly finished talking with me. That's when he drags me back behind the buildings, away from prying eyes. I can't stop him if I want to, which I do. He's too powerful for me to even try, but I won't be caught wailing in fright like some helpless maiden. I've been through enough to know it doesn't help anything, and only spurs bastards like him on. Maybe Jorgen will follow through with his promise, but I won't hold my breath. They're just like humans, I think, with despair, letting Inzo nudge me forward. They're all exactly the same.
Chapter 5. Inzo. With the human in tow, I lead the way to somewhere less populated. If Jorgen hadn't stuck his nose in my business, maybe I wouldn't have had to go to such lengths to maintain my wretched reputation. She is merely a pawn for me to exert my authority in a clan that seems intent on forgetting I exist. She stumbles, and though I know others are watching, I slow my pace slightly to let her catch up. But she's not protesting any longer. It's as if she has already decided that I am a monster and refuses to give me the gratification of her screams. I'm glad she is quiet, or I'd have had to shut her up too. Just add it to the growing list of my many crimes, I think, snorting at the thought of Loki bothering to keep track of them all. I'm supposed to be ruthless. I'm supposed to hate humans that, by their very existence, threatens ours. I was born to oppose Loki, and to take his place by force. I cannot bend to his silly rules, or they will call me weak and unable to lead when that time comes. I have to remain as ever obsessed with the power that hangs just out of reach. The woman is no longer struggling against me. I wonder if she's resigned to her fate, or if she's just in shock. Maybe she thought Jorgen would actually help, but it's obvious she hasn't figured out who I am, or she would know better. But her silence brings more than just blessed quiet. Rancid guilt weighs down my gut, till I can't stand it any longer and release her in one swift motion. She rubs her arm and glares up at me. What is wrong with you? Shouldn't she be running? I've given her a way out. I wouldn't even chase her if she did decide to flee. It's not as if I meant what I said to Jorgen. I just needed him to back down and recognize my authority. But now, she's questioning it with that heated look of hers. I flash a hateful grin. Were you just pretending to be afraid back there? Her eyes flare with true anger. How dare you? You almost got me killed because of your inflated ego. Then you drag me out into the middle of nowhere saying you're going to play with me? No wonder I've never seen you around before. You're an embarrassment to the clan. Her words strike home and I clench my fists, or at least try, but my left one doesn't move as pain sears up my bad arm. Like I said, I say, trying to keep my cool under the pressure of her ire. You don't know the half of it. She takes a step forward as if she has the capacity to challenge an orc. I'm starting to wonder if she's insane, and if other humans are like her as well. But I remember Urish's mate, and realize that they don't all suffer from small dog syndrome. This woman is nipping at my heels to see if I'll bite, and I just may. Run away, human, unless you want to get hurt. It's her turn to scoff. If you wanted to hurt me, you'd have done so already. I know a measuring contest when I see one. And you, she emphasized, jabbing a finger in my direction, are compensating for something. I gnash my teeth in her direction, making her swallow back her next words. You should have left me alone in the first place. She leans back on her heels with less caution and more curiosity. Why? Meddling little human, I grumble more to myself, turning my face away from her. Don't know when to give up. Don't have the good sense to be afraid. I click my tongue on the roof of my mouth. Run along. I'm tired of hearing your squawking. She reddens impressively and stares me down with indignation. She's so short. I'm surprised she can pull it off from her vantage point. "Excuse me," she says, far too calmly for the hate that's etched in her features. "But you were the one who kidnapped me." "And now you're free," I say with a sigh. "Get lost." But even in the face of my logic, she doesn't move. Spittle flies when I roar, "Go!" She braces herself but doesn't lose an inch of ground. "No," she says simply, crossing her arms over her chest. "I don't know what authority you think you have, but you can't tell me what to do. I belong here as much as you." How she gets under my skin. I turn away and scratch the stubble along my jaw, doing my best to ignore her existence. I don't want her to see where I dwell, or she'll never leave me alone. Her voice softens when she speaks next. "Jorgen is the head of security, and he tucked tail and ran when you challenged him. Why?" I don't answer, finding the flecked paint coming off the siding of a house far more interesting. "Who are you?" I grimace, breaking my silence. "That's none of your concern." I'm about to walk away when she grabs my bad arm again. I pivot on a heel to snarl at her, but she's not perturbed. Her next words bold. "Hey, you don't get to pull that and then just walk away. Tell me who you are, Enzo. Why are you so important?" I measure her with my gaze, surprised at how bold she's become. I don't like that Jorgen revealed to her my name, and I don't even know hers. "Who are you?" Her upper lip curls as if it disgusts her to admit anything to me. "Karissa," she says abruptly. "I'm a refugee from a nearby bunker," I finish. "I know. The others won't shut up about your lot." She huffs, my answer stealing the wind from her sails. "You're no good to me if you don't serve your purpose," I say, in an attempt to cut her with my words. "Go ahead. Tell everyone what I did to you. I'm sure you'll have the bruises to prove it, come morning." "And reinforce your deplorable reputation?" she asks, tilting her head. "No thanks. I'm not going to be labeled as Inzo's plaything. I don't know how Loki tolerates your kind." I give a wan shrug, already exhausted by this exchange. If it were up to me, you would all know your place. Even from this distance, I sense a shiver course through her. I hit a nerve and tears start to glisten in her eyes, but she says nothing at all, her lower lip firming defiantly. "Hate me," I think with muted glee. "Join the club." I can't stand looking at her any longer. It's not her. It's me. She is only holding a mirror to my actions. I hate the reflection that's staring back at me. I'm not one to back down, but I will not win this with words. She does not deserve my fists either, no matter how I might resent her. She's only revealing the ugly truth. "Hate me," I think again, smiling to myself as I set off in a random direction. When she's gone, I'll return to my home, where her dark looks will not reach me. "Leave me alone from now on," I say over my shoulder, "and we won't have a problem." A sound of disbelief escapes her, but she remains rooted to the spot. "What do you mean? Hey, I'm not done talking to you." I lower my head and storm away, letting her words linger long after she's out of sight.
Protheka is a dark and dangerous world.
My parents sold me to the dark market.
I am the avatar of chaos, and nothing will stop me from fulfilling the prophecy.
And the quest for godhood has made it even darker.
Looks like you're the only one left. Take a step forward.
Delia only seeks her freedom.
A gilded cage is still a cage.
But Thorn has something else in mind for her.
It's her. She's the woman from the prophecy. My key to godhood.
Will they be able to escape their fate? Get every episode from worldsofprotheka.com right now. Get the series bundle and score a 70% discount. Protheka's magic is eternal, and this series is just the beginning.
Chapter 6. Karissa. I remain rooted to the spot as I watch Inzo storm off, confounded. That orc has left a storm of emotions inside of me. Mainly frustration. How can he be so possessive one moment, and then discard me like I'm worth nothing the next? There is relief that he did not mean to hurt me, but it's strange that he told me to speak ill about him. I still feel his grip tight around my arm and attempt to rub out the sensation. What a weird orc, I think, turning my attention back to the preparations for the celebration tonight. Camille doesn't need to worry about whatever that was, and nor do I. I emerge from behind the buildings to find plenty of work left to do. I slip into the crowd and get busy. There are tables to be set, banners to be hung, and food to be cooked. The ovens run hot, so I can feel them at my back even from some distance away. The Burning Sun clan has spared no expense, and I'm not surprised, since Forrest is the first orc-human hybrid born to the clan. It's an important day for all of us. I'm carrying a platter filled to the brim with food as the gates are opened wide. Even the orcs around me stall to catch a glance at the incoming crowd. I didn't think we had any guests coming outside of the clan itself, and we're all here. I back away from their ranks, watching the newcomers warily as they march in with carts laden with crates and goods. Loki doesn't hesitate to greet them, a stern expression written all over his face. I did not expect you to show your faces here, and today, of all days. Does he know these orcs? On closer inspection, I notice that this clan bears the marks of defeat. They are bruised and nursing old wounds, and still, they bear gifts. What seems to be the leader steps forward to greet Loki. We have come with peace offerings for the great and powerful Burning Sun clan. He presents the carts and the crates with the wave of his hand. You defeated us in battle and spared us our lives, so we are indebted, as was agreed. Loki issues a single nod, and his guards close in on the offerings, cracking open the crates to be sure there is no deception. The outsiders yield gladly, handing off the crates to Jorgen and the other orcs. Foods and medicines are revealed, along with textiles and furs that will be of great use to the clan. I watch with wonder, even as the platter is growing heavier by the moment. When the trade is complete, Loki clasps the arm of their leader in a more friendly gesture. The Windcleaver clan has come through with our bargain, and your tribute is noted, vassals of the Burning Sun. The crowd doesn't know what to do with themselves as they watch the exchange. Jorgen commands his guards to haul the gifts to the main hall. Roz is beside him, looking all too pleased with himself like always. He doesn't see me in the crowd, and I'm glad for it. I've never liked Roz, with his ever-present grin and cool exterior. He's a negotiator of sorts with other clans, an in-between that doesn't seem to hold allegiance to anyone. I never can read that one, and it unnerves me. The excitement settles and the work resumes. But before I can deliver the food, Holly beckons me to one side, her eyes wide and guilty. Karissa, over here. I shift the platter to my other arm to relieve my tired muscles. What's wrong? There's obviously something off. I can tell by the way she glances around the settlement that she's worried about something. Did she see me with Enzo earlier? My heart drops at the possibility. Well, she begins, looking away as if to avoid my eye. I was wondering if you could step in for a bit. That's when she begins to ramble. You see, I took over for Mary because she's not feeling well, but I must have eaten something that disagrees with me. And now the whole event is going to be without a coordinator, but that's not fair to Camille and... Hold up a second, I interrupt, setting the tray down and drawing us further from the bustle of the clan. Slow down and tell me again. She takes a deep breath, and I notice her knees are squeezed together as if she has to pee. I thought I could take over for Mary, but now I'm, well, sick, and I don't have the focus to see the event through. I was hoping you'd cover for me today. Holly bites her lip, waiting for my answer. Me? Leading the event? It wasn't something I ever considered, but the idea excites me more than I realise it would, and I nod my head with enthusiasm. I'll make sure things are handled on our end. You just take care of yourself, okay? A grin blooms on her face. Thank you, Karissa. You're a lifesaver. I wave the compliment off as she leads me to the centre of the settlement, where a female orc is bowed over plans spread across the tabletop. She looks up and spots Holly and I. There you are. Where have you been? Finding a replacement, Holly says in turn. This is Karissa. Gotta run. With that, Holly takes off at a steady wobble towards the bathrooms. The orc female laughs at the exchange, then puts out a hand. The name's Hanaya. It's nice to finally meet you, Karissa. Likewise, I say, glancing back at Holly to be sure she made it in time before accepting Hanaya's hand and giving it a firm shake. I guess food poisoning is no joke, huh? It's a killer, all right. But her manner is all teasing. You're not going to run off on me too, are you? When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. I cross my arms over my chest defiantly. Let's get cracking. By the time the sun sets, the checklist is branded into my mind. I double-check everything just to be sure, from the plaza to Irish's front door and back, to guarantee that everything is accounted for. Holly and Hanaya had already thought of everything, so all I needed to do was oversee its execution. The bonfire blazes in the plaza square, and the torches illuminate the streets, so I don't realise the celebration has begun until I hear the band kick up a bright and happy tune. The fast-paced beat makes my feet want to move, and I see some have already given in to the urge. Everything is in order. Though this morning was fraught with uncertainty, tonight is its opposite. I've forgotten that bastard that lurks in the shadows for my people and for the merging of our species. It's more than just a celebration of a rare and cherished child. It's an augur to our future together, of humans and orcs united. We're making history tonight. True excitement wells up inside of me, a feeling I almost don't recognise. It makes my fingers tingle and my heart leap with pride. I hope Camille feels it too when she finally arrives at her own party. I smile in earnest, staring out across the settlement that's become a party to tell the grandchildren about. Loki rises to the low stage to speak, drawing everyone in. Finally, I say to myself, it's starting.
Chapter 7. Inzo. I sit on the roof of my late father's house with a bottle clenched in my fist. From here I can see the celebrations in full swing. Loki issued a rallying, heartfelt speech about unity and all that nonsense, nearly making me gag. He seems to need the clan's favor at every turn nowadays, and the practice has become a nauseating display. Sure, the Burning Sun clan is a powerful entity, but it's because of every single orc that has fought for it and lost something. I clutch my bad arm, remembering exactly what I lost. Not him, though, who stands on the labor of others and preens himself on the public stand. Loki's gone soft. A crate would make for a better chieftain, because at least it would not brag about its accomplishments. He's making such a big deal out of a single whelp. What does it matter? Children are born every day and they do not get the reception this little tyke has already received. I take a long swig of spirits to dampen my irritation. Complete nonsense, I grumble into the cold night air, so far from their blazing fires. If I were chieftain, I wouldn't waste resources on such a frivolous affair. I should adjourn for the evening. It will already be difficult navigating the window at this rate, and with each drink, I'm only getting drunker. But for some reason, I can't tear my eyes away from the excitement below. Even from here, it almost warms my cold skin. Misery finds me, and I sigh. At least the alcohol dulls the ache in my bad arm, so that I can almost forget it had been damaged in the first place. I showed promise before the accident and had a plan. I was going to rule this clan like the orcs of the old world, relentlessly and with an iron fist. It is still my blood right, I growl under my breath, though even I know better. No one will bend to my authority now that I am a cripple. I saw the way that woman looked at me today. Even the lowliest of the human refugees scowl in my direction and mock me under their breath. My own kind looks upon me with not fear, but pity nowadays. I take another drink. The music hushes, and so does the crowd as something begins to happen down below. Is it the main attraction, finally showing its drooling little face? From Irish's front door, his mate emerges with a bundle in her arms. Irish follows closely behind, braced as if he's ready to protect his little family from the crowd. Their cheer is overwhelming, making the little bundle writhe. The human woman Camille pulls the blanket away from the little one's face, revealing an earthy green visage with eyes pursed shut and a mouth wide open, squalling with bare gums. Even from here, I have a good view of the boy, and he looks entirely orcish. How is that possible? I'm leaning so far forward, I nearly sway and tumble off the roof. I brace myself and study the little family through bleary eyes. Shouldn't he be half human? I puzzle over it in frustration as the child is passed from its tired mother to Irish, who glows with adoration. That look puts me off my alcohol. It churns my gut, and I'm not sure why, until I realize that my father never looked at me that way when I was a whelpling. Not once. And after I was injured, everyone simply abandoned me. I have no friends, no family unless I'm counting Loki, which I'm not. And so I sit on this rooftop, drinking alone while they celebrate the growth of their clan. I've had enough of this nonsense, I think. My mind spins with the effects of the drink, threatening to bowl me over, but I manage to regain my footing long enough to notice something suspicious on the outer limits of the party. There are several orcs gathered together, watching the happy little family like I am, cast in shadow. I should be the only lurker among this clan, so why aren't they joining in on the excitement? Maybe they're up to no good. The thought sobers me as I amble down the side of the house, landing with both feet planted on the earth. I steady myself before searching for their silhouettes, but they've dispersed somewhere out of sight. I lean against one building like a drunkard, keeping a keen eye out for any movement when I finally spot one of the shadowed figures vanishing into the night. I don't care much for what they're trying to do. I just want to chase something down and feel the rush of the hunt again. It's been too long since I've started to stow myself away in that musty old house filled with ghosts of the past. It feels good to stretch my legs a little. Maybe it's the spirits, but confidence catches up with me that I haven't yet earned. The lurkers do their best to hide, and it's an admirable effort, but I'm the better hunter. Now that I've sniffed them out, they'll be hard-pressed to lose me again. It takes me some time to realize, however, that they're not part of our clan at all. Unwelcome guests among the celebrants. I have to wonder if they have anything to do with the defeated Windcleaver clan that visited with their tributes today. But it doesn't seem likely. They don't have the force to take on the Burning Sun on the best of days. We destroyed them once, and they've learned their lesson. Still, something's afoot. And while Loki's tittering about, playing the generous host, this deception is not lost on me. The orc I'm following seems to know his way around the camp, slipping between buildings with practiced ease, until we reach a gap in the perimeter that wasn't there before. I know every board and shingle in this settlement, and somehow they've managed to break through our defenses without us even knowing. I follow him through, keeping low so as to avoid detection in the thick hedges. Tonight, however, even the guards are distracted by the christening of Little Forest, so the perimeter is even less secure than normal. Such a good thing it is, then, that they have me. I grimace to myself, knowing that whatever proof I may bring to the council will be thoroughly vetted and questioned rather than trusted. A bad reputation is better than none at all, and it seems I've slipped into obscurity. For my quarry, however, that is quite the disadvantage. They'll have expected everyone to be busy with the celebration, but not this recluse. I'm almost glad they forgot to check up on me. I bare my tusks at my quarry's back, wondering what he's up to as he walks into a clearing just outside of the settlement. I almost rush out to take him by surprise when another figure, this one much smaller, makes an appearance. He is the height of a human, concealed in a dark cloak. I hold my breath in surprise, realizing that this is a much deeper betrayal than I first suspected, and watch as they begin to talk, their tone too low for even my keen ears to pick up on. I slip back into the shadows to observe, wondering where the others are. There were at least 3, and now it's just the one, relaying information to the man. I steady my wavering self against a tree trunk, my nails digging into the rough bark. Loki would love to be the first to hear about this exciting turn of events, but I'd rather handle it myself. Who on earth is this intruder anyway?
Chapter 8. Karissa. I'd wanted a little one-on-one forest time before the festivities started, but after my little paranoia-fueled detour and sudden promotion for the night, I never got the chance. Now, I just feel fortunate to be able to see Forest. I watch the small crowd gathered around Camille, Irish, and the baby. Having fun? Hanaya asks, bringing me something to drink. I'm not entirely sure of the name of it, but I think it's equivalent to beer fermented from some plant the orcs brought with them. Yeah, it's nice. I'm just hoping I'll get a chance to hold Forest for a bit. He's a very special child, isn't he? Hanaya phrases it like a question, and yet doesn't say it like it's one. It's strange how much pressure people are already putting on this child. Not that he knows it, but there are a lot of people pinning hopes for peace between orcs and humans on him. It's not that people expect him to broker it, but that as a symbol, he can usher in some new era of unity after our worlds were suddenly and violently thrown together. It's a lot to put on a kid still in diapers, but I hold out hope that by the time he's old enough to understand the problems, the grown-ups will have gotten things figured out. Yes, he is. I leave all my other thoughts on the matter unspoken. I don't know if there's even more cultural or religious significance to the child. I could ask, but I don't. It's not like the orcs haven't been welcoming and understanding, but I still am plagued by worries that if I take up too much space, if I get noticed, I'll get hurt for it. Instead, I just say, I'm not sure I'm going to get a chance tonight. As the guest of honour, so to speak, Forrest's a very popular little guy, and while it's been a while since I've had a chance to hold him, the community is so tight-knit that I don't want to monopolise him. Okay, I do. I just don't want to upset everyone else by doing it. But I can see that at least Irish is a little uneasy about the number of people getting so close to his child. Whenever most people are holding Forest, Irish is circling them, eyeing them like a hawk. I noticed it the first time I held Forest, but I think that I've grown close enough to the family that I must at least be a little trusted. Irish even left the room once when I was holding Forest. While I don't want to jinx it by asking out loud if it's true, I think I've started to win him, if not the rest of his family, over. It's sweet to see how much he cares for his child. Though as the evening continues, little Forest is starting to get tired and a little cranky. But it looks like Camille and Irish are having fun talking with all their guests, and they still have gifts to open. I start to make my way over to them. I figure I can offer to take him home and rock him to sleep. But just as I'm within earshot, I see Camille turn to Bonnie, a human woman who seems to be Camille's best friend, and ask, "Could you take Forest inside?" "Yes," Bonnie says cheerfully, taking the pudgy ball of olive green skin from his mother and then carrying him into the house just off the plaza. It's not like Bonnie is a bad choice for a caretaker. She is a doctor after all, and very nice as far as I know. But I'm kicking myself for not approaching Camille sooner. Defeated yet again in my attempts to hold the baby, I start to find it difficult to put myself in the right mood to enjoy the dancing. Although it is great to see the way the orcs have welcomed the humans into their community. By the way, some orcs and humans are dancing together. I'm sure Forest and Loki's child will not be the only half-orc, half-human children. But I still can't let go of my drive to hold the baby. I'm not even sure why this need feels so intense. While Forest is the first orc and human baby, and he's exceptionally cute, he's not the first baby I've ever been around. Maybe it just prods the biological urge to procreate and have one of my own. Still, that seems so strange to me since I'd felt so opposed to having kids when I lived in the bunker. But maybe now that the environment is better for raising kids, those urges and instincts have been given space to flourish. Either way, my desire to hold the baby starts to test the limits of my self-restraint. The thought is like a cloud over everything. I've come to enjoy Ortish drums, but with the way their sound carries in the night air, all I can think is the noise keeping the baby up? I stare longingly at Irish's house. That's when I see a shadow pass across the window in one of the second-floor rooms. After the incident this afternoon where the mystery stalker turned out to just be some handsy jerk, I'm not looking to raise the alarm and have it just be Camille's younger sister, Ivory. But when I scan the party, there she is with some of the orc kids her age laughing about something one of the orcs said. I look at the window again and realise the figure is much too big to have been Ivory, even at the most extreme lighting angles. Who could be in the house? There are plenty of reasonable explanations for someone being in the house. Irish is the commander of the army. Maybe someone is dropping off some military intelligence or something. Perhaps Bonnie has a gentleman friend over, or it could be someone hired to guard the baby. But each time I try to come up with a justification, my mind latches on to the possibility that Camille and Irish's child is in danger. I'm torn between either trying to tell one or both of them about it and going to check it out personally to save myself from gaining a reputation as a paranoid alarmist. I think I'm going to turn in for the night, I tell Hanaya. Good night, she says as she goes back to dancing. I bow out of the dance and circle around the tables stacked with food until I can slip into an alleyway. From there I travel in the shadows of buildings, staying out of sight. I see guards around the house, a mix of men from the garrison and city guards. The likelihood that the silhouette I saw was just a guard increases, but I have to be sure. I briefly consider just telling one of the guards about the shadowy figure I saw moving upstairs. But people talk. I again worry about being labelled paranoid. As supportive and welcoming as the community has been, I still worry about being deemed unworthy to live among them if I make too much of a nuisance of myself. So instead, I sneak around the guards. As I walk up to a side door, I feel like it's almost too easy to get this close to the house. It doesn't speak well of the ability of these guards to keep Forrest safe. I can move quickly and quietly, but I'm not trained in any formal capacity. I just learned to excel at moving without gaining attention. The best way to deal with Boyd was to avoid him without looking like I was avoiding him. But I don't think my abilities, even as practiced as they are, should have gotten me right up to an unguarded side entrance. Maybe there's a guard waiting just inside the door. In that case, I can just tell them what I was worried about and maybe get to walk away without getting thrown in jail. I hold my breath and reach for the doorknob. Chapter 9. Karissa. My heart hammers in my chest as I cross the threshold into Camille and Irish's home. I've been here a few times before, just in the main living area to help Camille after Forrest came. It's a quaint home, not nearly as grand as one might expect for a commander of Burning Sun, but still spacious and well kept. The side entrance opens into a mudroom of sorts that connects to the main foyer. I ease towards the foyer slowly, painfully aware of my every footfall, hoping that I'll catch a peek of Bonnie and Forrest and have these paranoid delusions put to rest. The home itself is beautiful, exactly the place you'd hope to raise a family in, and while I couldn't be more thrilled for Irsi and Camille, I can't help the envy that nibbles at my stomach. I press myself against the entryway wall, bracing to come face to face with more guards as I round the corner, but there are none. I almost sigh in relief, grateful that I won't have to try and justify my presence in a house that I don't belong in when my blood runs cold. If there are no guards inside, I think, and even I was able to get past the guards outside, how is Forrest safe? The thought seizes my heart like a fist just as I hear footsteps. It's clearly more than one adult, and they sound far too heavy to be Bonnie's. I try to tell myself that I'm being ridiculous, but I can't help the pull to run upstairs. I just have to be sure they're safe, that's all, I tell myself, as I look towards the sounds at the top of the stairs. I slide away from the front door and into the shadows of the staircase, following the sounds of footfalls above me. I'm hardly breathing at all when I reach the top of the stairs and begin to ease along the wall of the hallway. The sounds of footfalls ahead stop suddenly, and I have to fight the freezing panic thrumming in my body. I peek my head around the corner of the first open doorway, praying to confirm that the sounds are only Bonnie soothing Forrest to sleep. It's a nursery, fit for a little prince. The crib is a rich walnut, with hand-engraved details along the headboard, and a plush baby-sized blanket draped across the side. Small, handmade figurines dance on strings above the crib, and I'm able to pick out birds and squirrels and a little fox before it occurs to me that the crib is empty. Movement catches my eye in the corner of the room, and I turn, only to see a small, crumpled shadow near the dresser that I'd mistaken for a pile of clothing or blankets. Horror washes over me as I realise the contorted, too-still form is Bonnie, dried blood caked into her dark hair and mingling with the dusting of freckles across her cheeks. Forrest is nowhere to be seen. There's whispering up the hall, and I do my best to fight the rising panic in my throat as my hands tremble. I look around frantically, hoping for something, anything, to use to defend myself, when I knock into a painting hanging on the wall of the hallway. Everything in the house goes still and then explodes into motion. The whispering gets louder, and I pick out the phrase "find them" as hurried footsteps rush toward me. I reach for the knob of the door across the hall to find it already slightly ajar. I push inside the room, some kind of library or office, and see a vintage baseball bat leaning against the desk. It's a strange human relic to keep, but I'm not complaining. I ease the door shut behind me, wincing as the latch clicks into place, before I hoist the bat over my shoulder. I position myself almost behind the door, enough to be hidden but not enough to block the blow I plan to inflict on whoever comes in after me. The footsteps are louder now, but less hurried. I can tell by the heaviness of the footfalls that whoever's looking for me is an orc, and while I'm not confident in the amount of damage I can inflict with the baseball bat, I have to try. If the guards outside aren't going to protect Forrest and Bonnie, I will. "There's definitely someone here," comes a voice like rocks in a blender from outside the door. The hair on the back of my neck raises as I watch the orc's shadow leak under the doorframe. I readjust my grip on the bat to try and make up for my sweaty palms as the doorknob begins to turn. "We got what we came here for," another equally gruff voice sounds from down the hall, halting the turning of the doorknob. "We need to leave now, or else we won't be able to get the brat out in time." "And what of the human on the floor?" responds the voice at the door, tinged with annoyance and growing fainter as his shadow disappears from beneath the door. I stay rooted to the spot, bat still raised to strike, not entirely trusting that they won't burst in the door any second. Their voices grow more distant, and I'm frozen to the spot by indecision. Are they gone? Is this a trap? What if they hurt Forrest? What if they've already taken him? What if they take Bonnie too? My thoughts whirl as I stare at the door. Who are these people, and why would they want to hurt a baby? Icy fear still flowed through me, but the thought of potentially endangering Bonnie and Forrest further by my inaction pushes me towards the intruders. I rush out of the office, letting out a blood-curdling scream to try and surprise my attackers and offset the stark power imbalance in this fight. I raise the bat high over my shoulder, ready to swing, when I realise that the hall is empty. The window in Forrest's nursery is now wide open, curtains fluttering in a phantom breeze. The bat in my hands clatters to the floor. "Bonnie!" This huge orc brings out the animal in me.
In a world where humans have been driven underground, living like rats is the only way to stay safe from the marauding orcs.
All my life, my only job has been to make sure I have enough to eat.
These orcs of the Burning Sun clan will vow to keep their human mates safe.
There is a nobleness to these giant savages. Alpha male warriors who will protect their women at all costs.
Get this complete series of books following the Burning Sun clan for 70% off. Each book is a full-length monster romance that features a giant orc with eyes for his beloved, curvy human. Happily ever after guaranteed.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
This bundle will show you that size really does matter. Chapter 10. Inzo. Whether it's the alcohol or the warrior instinct in my blood, I've had enough of watching this betrayal unfold. Weapon or no weapon, I think as I bare my tusks in a bloodthirsty smile, the glory of this discovery will be mine. I push off the tree I've been leaning on, rushing towards the shadows in the clearing. Both figures freeze for a moment, shocked by my sudden appearance out of the darkness, and try to pull their weapons before I'm on top of them. I aim for the orc first, figuring he's the larger threat of the two. I'm fast, but he manages to get his sword out in time, nonetheless. Not that it'll help him. The orc swings his sword across, clearly aiming for my neck. I duck under the swing easily and lash a leg out, making contact with his knee. To the orc's credit, he doesn't collapse, but the sudden loss of his balance is enough of a window for me to land a vicious blow to the side of his head. I may be able to recognize a worthy adversary, I think to myself smugly, as I watch the orc reel from the blow. But I'm always a better one. No sooner is the thought complete than a slash appears across my shoulder, fiery pain appearing with it. I roar, turning to find the cloaked human wielding a dagger. The human lashes again, their blade a blur of steel, but I jump back to avoid it, landing a kick to the middle of the human's chest that sends them flailing back into a tree. There's a resounding thud that ensures me they won't be an issue for at least a few minutes. I turn again towards the orc in time to dodge a vicious overhand swing. I'm forced to the ground to roll out of the way of his blade, but as I roll, I let my hand scrape over the ground, gathering loose earth in my fist. I'm tired of this game, I growl as I right myself. The orc goes to strike once more, clearly getting worn down by this back and forth, and I blow the dirt out of my hand and into his eyes. Before I was a cripple, I never would have thought to fight with such dishonor. Now I can't find it in me to care. Creativity has its place, after all. The orc stumbles back, howling as he tries to blink through the debris. I rush towards him, lowering my shoulder and making contact with his chest, sending him flying onto his back and loosening his grip on the sword. I wrench the sword from his hand and bring the blade down into his chest with a sickening crunch. It's only when the sword is still for a moment that I recognize the detailing on the hilt and the way the steel was worked to form the blade. Windcleaver, I think grimly. It's surprising, but not entirely beyond understanding. The Windcleaver base was a small, outlying base that had grown too cocky as a neighbor, so Loki personally took up the sword to ensure that they learned their place. The conflict wasn't long or drawn out, but it was vicious, as Windcleaver was a base of mostly warriors. Loki had offered them a treaty, sparing the lives of the remaining members of the base in exchange for their position as a vassal to Burning Sun. And look how that turned out, I think sardonically, the acid burning in my throat. He should have been rid of them all, but instead his weakness has to be cleaned up by better orcs yet again. I withdraw the sword from the orc's chest, grimacing at the weight of it in my hand. I may have learned to fight around my crippled arm in hand-to-hand combat, but trying to wield a weapon, especially a heavy sword, in my other hand still feels wrong. I lift my gaze to the tree I'd knocked the human against, only to find the cloaked human gone. Whether or not they ran or are still lurking somewhere in the area remains to be seen, but footfalls behind me force me to turn around once more. 2 more orcs appear, wielding the same Windcleaver weapons. I steady myself with the sword, breathing in deeply through my nose as the first reaches me. I raise my sword to meet his swing, letting the loud clashing of metals reverberate down my arm. I spin out from under his attack, the sudden loss of my counterweight knocking him off balance. I use the momentum of my spin to my advantage and bring the blade down on the back of the orc's neck, slicing straight through his spine. I hardly have any time to turn when the second orc is on me, swinging his sword out. I thrust my sword out awkwardly, trying to create some distance between us, my arm growing more tired by the second, and the alcohol beginning to catch up to me. The second orc's sword comes down hard, and nearly wrests the sword from my grip. Damn it, I think as I grit my teeth. My rage lends me a second wind, and I kick out at the orc. Surprise is written on his face as I drag my blade across his throat, pushing his corpse to the side as I race to catch my breath. I back away from the carnage and begin to head back for the perimeter to sound the alarm when I see the cloaked human. Whoever they are, they've brought reinforcements with them, wielding daggers and swords. I count 10 orcs before I stop counting entirely. How did they go unnoticed? I raged to myself as I clasped my fingers tighter around the sword in my hand. I had only seen 5, maybe 6, Windcleaver orcs with the caravan earlier. They were lying in wait, I realize. Hot fury pulses through my veins at the thought. They knew Forrest's christening was today, and saw it as the perfect opportunity. The orcs and the cloaked human begin moving towards me, like a pack of wolves readying to take down an injured doe. There's too many of them for me to fight, especially while crippled. But that doesn't mean I won't try. Chapter 11. Inzo. A slice of a dagger across my shoulder renders my dominant arm useless. Fantastic. Now I have 2 useless appendages to throw around in this fight. My hands won't close completely, so I cannot wrest the sword away from the cloaked man intent on killing me. And my hands cannot form a fist, so I have no ability to punch the dagger-wielding orcs who also would like to kill me. Seeing as how I do not want to lay down and die, this presents a bit of a problem. Damn your stubborn hide! An orc with a gold tooth snarls at me as he slices another irritating cut into my arm. Would you just give up? You're barely standing. That much is true. Blood loss and the damage to my dominant side has rendered my balance like that of a landed fish. Only years of losing to Loki keeps me upright. I'm used to being outmatched, and these fighters are well trained, but they are not nearly as skilled as my cousin. One well-placed kick knocks his dagger to the ground, but I cannot follow through with another blow. The kick nearly sends me to the ground along with his weapon, and he picks it back up with nothing more than a frustrated grunt. All I can say for myself is that I remain standing. The enemy orcs control the rhythm of the fight, and I realize too late that they have been toying with me the entire time. With a conspiratorial glance, they push me ever farther away from the base. We are deep in the woods now, where the crickets chirp and creatures howl from the bushes. The ambient noise of my base and the scent of fresh grilled meats has long vanished, and I've noticed it far too long. There's no chance of backup now. This is not a fight I can win. Beautiful night, the gold-toothed orc comments to a taller comrade. I heard a sacrifice is worth double if it's made on a full moon. The moon is full, and it hangs low in the sky, illuminating our skirmish. The taller man aims a kick at my chest, and I block it with my worthless hands. They crunch. I dodge another sword, but I know the fight is nearing an end. My chest heaves with effort, and sweat blurs my vision. I block blow after blow until my arms quiver like the legs of a newborn Hokeen. I am able to protect everything vital, but my blood drips to the forest floor like water. Soon, both arms are completely useless, hanging at my sides. They are decorations only, bloody adornments for a failed warrior. A punch lands hard in my gut, and I grunt in pain. If the orc had swung his blade, I would have been finished. I adjust my stance too late, nearly fall when another orc swings. My feet have become leaden and slow, nearly as useless as my arms. A training dummy would make a more worthy opponent. You think the war god wants this? Another cut, cold and brutal, this time across the palm of my hand. My blood drips onto the fallen leaves. The wolves will descend on us soon once they smell it. I might be able to escape if I can manage to distract them, but it will need to be soon. My strength is waning. I don't know how far I'll be able to run. Weakling. The other orcs mock me as well, but nothing they can say is sharper than the voice of my father inside my own head. Coward. You're a waste of training and a waste of space. Nothing but a mouth, taking and taking and taking. And for what? What is your grand purpose? To lose again and again, to flee like a defenseless human. My father might have forgiven me my disability if I hadn't had the shameful, all-encompassing desire to live. Loki would have beaten them already. Rage against my cousin's good fortune is not enough, but it gives me enough power to counter a dagger's blow and sweep my enemy to the ground. I stumble on my feet, but find my balance. Now is the time to run. I take a deep breath and prepare to sprint back to the base. If I hurry, I can still alert the guards. The Windcleaver orcs are enemies and should be eliminated as such. Loki should be reprimanded for even allowing them past our gates alive, and the cold pleasure of watching his leadership crumble soothes the sting of retreat, if only slightly. I take a step back towards my base. The orcs lunge forward, and I turn and run. Cold metal narrowly misses me as I race forward. I hate myself with every step, but what else is new? I always hate myself. Come back here, you sniveling dog. I have the advantage. This is my forest, and I know it well. Clouds cover the moon, and the path is dark, nearly unlit. My escape is certain. A baby cries. My steps falter. No, a baby wails, and it wails directly before me. I skid to a stop, and the moon emerges to reveal 2 orcs and an inconsolable orc baby. The baby hiccups and screams as though terrified. I've never heard a child make such a sound, but instinctively I know that this child has been stolen. Forest! This is why the Windcleaver clan has come. Not for repentance, but for vengeance. That they would dare lay a finger on one of our children boils my blood. They should have been slain like the vermin they are instead of inviting these vipers into our nest. Now foolish Loki is paying the ultimate price for his arrogance. I wish I could slap him. He decorated our base and served these swine our finest foods. I've always known his lack of judgment would drive our clan to extinction. But somehow the vindication isn't as satisfying as I'd always thought it would be. Urish's hybrid son is the pride of our entire clan, and although the thought of bowing before the human orc infant makes me seethe with jealousy, the child is still born to the burning sun. These orcs are not fit to touch the hair on his head. The orc with the baby takes a step behind the other, whose black eyes shine with disdain. He doesn't even unsheath his weapon. Have you come to bleed on me, then? His eyes trail up and down my wrecked body. I have to admit I don't look like much of an opponent. I am badly out of breath and dizzy with blood loss. My body tilts to one side as I step towards him. Let's bleed together, I suggest. If he underestimates me, all the better. A brief, detailed fantasy of returning Irish's son before the entire clan spurs me forward. There isn't much I wouldn't give to demonstrate to my people what a bumbling fool our chief is. What good is strength if it isn't used? Loki has led us into weakness with his strange fondness of humans and pendant for forgiving our enemies. I will lead our clan as an orc should, with unyielding strength. A blow to my back sends me to my knees. Loki is not the only fool. As always, the voice is my father's, callously cruel. I can no longer tell if my enemies are hurting me, or if these pains are echoes of my past. Do you see what happens when you're weak? You failed your entire clan. Worthless. At least your brother provides nourishment for the worms. What do you bring us besides shame? Leaves crunch beneath me, and a twig pokes at my cheek. Another blow to my head leaves me dazed, unable to move. All I can do is stare at the fading moon and listen to the haunting cry of the promised child.
Chapter 12. Karissa. Bonnie lets out a soft moan, and I kneel beside her. Blood drips from her forehead. I grab a nearby blanket to hold against her head, but she pushes my hand aside. Forrest! I freeze. They took him. She blinks, clearly dazed, but her hand on my wrist is strong. She squeezes. You have to find him. Please, please. You have to look. Maybe you'll find some clue as to where they've taken him. Of course. What is my safety compared to a commander's half-human son? Blood pours from her wound, and my heart thunders in my chest. Seeing my resolve, she nods and releases my hand. Let the guards know. Time is not on our side, so I climb out the same window the orcs used. I hear nothing but festivities. They've moved fast, but the moon is high in the sky. I'll be able to see them if I can catch up quickly, and there's no way they'll be able to pass through the border gate without alerting security. Sure enough, their footprints lead straight to the gate. Relieved, I expect the guards to have caught the kidnappers with ease. The burning sun does not skimp on security, and they are some of the clan's best fighters. But as I approach, the gate is silent. Too silent. All I can hear are the festivities within the gates, the raucous cheers of orcs and humans who have no idea anything is amiss. I see them. I see them. 2 giant orcs, huddled together as they rush past the gates and into the woods, pass through the gates without so much as a backward glance. What the hell? I follow, racing stealthily behind them, and peek into the tower. If the guards are caught sleeping, there will be hell to pay. But they aren't sleeping. 2 orcs lay slumped in the tower with blood pouring from their mouths. It drips onto the concrete beneath them and pools into a puddle at their pallid feet. I swallow a gasp at the sight. I can't alert the orcs ahead that they're being followed. The only person who can save Forest is me. A human is not safe in these woods, not at night, but I have no choice. I plunge into the overgrown forest and tear pieces of my clothes to leave behind in the underbrush as a trail. Bonnie will alert security somehow now that's awake, and they won't dawdle in saving the first hybrid child. These orcs will pay for what they've done, and I will lead the retribution straight to them. We travel deeper than I've ever gone. The clouds cover the moon, and I follow in complete darkness, listening for the footsteps ahead. Now that they've left the orc base, they are brazen and loud in their steps. The baby cries, tearing at my heart, and they laugh uproariously. "Look at it," one orc scoffs. "To think they call this one an orc. See how soft it is." They're pinching him. The moon's light returns, and I watch in horror as they take turns twisting their talons against the newborn child's flesh. "Human scum," the other says companionably. "We're doing them a favour, taking this abomination." I hate them. "Now look at this." The baby continues to scream, but their attention drifts ahead. Have you ever seen a fight more pathetic? I cling to the bark of a large oak tree, covered in the shadows. There is the sound of a fight ahead of us, and for a moment I'm hopeful that the security team has arrived. My heart sinks when I see that it is Enzo. The dark mark on the back of his head where his hair should be distinguishes him, as does his stubborn refusal to yield, even though he looks worse than the dead guards back in the tower. His arms dangle, torn to shreds by the blades of his enemies, and still he fights. The others mock him, and something in my chest twists. He fights valiantly somehow, summoning a strength deep within before managing a sensible retreat. Good. I can't say that I like him. He's arrogant and cold, and I can still feel the way his arm curled around mine, as if I were his to order about. I'm still not sure what his game was back on the base, especially since he released me as soon as no orc was there to assume he was some sort of terrible brute. Is it an act? He doesn't seem so horrible now. Even if he were, I want him to survive. I let out a soft rush of breath as he tricks the other orcs and sprints away into the woods. He can summon the others, and we can rescue Forest before they carry him even farther. No, he's running straight toward the kidnappers. He's been beaten until he's nearly half conscious, I see now, and he barely staggers to a stop before barreling into the orc's blade. His eyes widen when he sees Forest. "What? Have you come to bleed on me then?" An orc swaggers towards Inzo, and the others surround him from behind. The kidnapper takes one look at Enzo and condescendingly sheathes his weapon. I swallow. Something in Enzo's eyes suggests that he knows this is the end. He shrugs his shoulders back and manages to jut his chin forward. He's cockier than he has any right to be, even as his legs are nearly buckling beneath him. "Let's bleed together." The orcs behind him advance. I press my arm against my mouth firmly, physically burying the urge to scream out a warning. Inzo never sees the blow coming. I squeeze my eyes tight. I can't help him, not in the state he's in, and the survival of the baby is paramount. That doesn't make it easier to hear the beating that ensues, or the sick crunch of a boot brought against soft flesh. Their attack is quick and brutal. Soon the only sound is his wheezing breath and the infant's cry. I silently press into the bushes. The moon is bright, but I am well hidden in the shadows. Inzo lays crumpled on the ground, bleeding. His eyes are open, but unseeing. The unsteady rasp of his breath is the only indication he's still alive. Help will be here soon. Bonnie must have told the others by now. They'll come, and they'll save Inzo, and they'll save Forrest, and all of this will pass like it's some nightmare. I don't like the way he's breathing. It isn't fair that he fought with such courage only to end up like this, half dead and gasping for breath on the forest floor. Where is everyone? Have my strips of cloth blown away? I want to cry, but Forrest's wails help me bury my overwhelming emotion. I have to hold it together just a little while longer. An orc with wide shoulders and a gold tooth presses his toe against Inzo's chest and rolls him to the side, dismissive. He studies Inzo with an odd look on his face and then raises his head to the night sky and inhales, as though smelling the air. Do you smell that? The other orcs look at each other, nervous. This one appears to be their leader. They cower and squirm as his gaze travels across each of them, and then he leans down towards Inzo. He kicks him again, sharp, and a pained breath escapes his bleeding lips. Of course you don't. How could you? You reek of failure. He looks directly at the bushes. My heart beats so strongly I can feel it in my teeth. He can't see me. There's no way. I can hardly see myself in this darkness. I look at my hands, and all I see is pitch black. And it seems as though a little rat has followed your wretched scent all the way here.
Chapter 13. Inzo. My eyes blur with blood and sweat, the boot pressing down between my shoulder blades, the only thing holding me to this earth. I find Forrest through bleary eyes, and the full weight of my failure claws at me. They'll kill him, and I can do nothing to stop them. Every cell in my body is screaming for reprieve, screaming for death. Father would be glad to know I've finally given up my tedious will to live. I'm pulled from my thoughts by Forrest's cries, growing more frantic as the orcs who hold us captive laugh. The pounding in my head blurs the cries of the baby in front of me with the cries of my baby brother all those years ago. The first time I held my baby brother, I was 8 years old. It was the first time I was ever happy to be my father's son. His mossy green skin and sweet, scrunched-up face kindled a type of love in me that I knew my father never felt for me for either of us. My father hardly touched Daegu, and I was left to care for him more often than not, a task I was happy to do. Daegu was a month old when we finally realized he was different. In truth, I'd realized my baby brother couldn't hear long before that, but I'd hidden it the best I could from my father. For all of my faults as a son, there was still potential for me to become the proud orc warrior my father felt entitled to creating. For Daegu, there was no such future. The onslaught of memories comes suddenly, the pain almost forcing a cry from my dry, bloodied throat. The smell of smoke is thick in the air as I crest the hill, carrying so much firewood that I can barely see over the top of the stack. The firewood clatters to the ground as I realize the smoke I've been smelling for the past quarter mile is coming from my family home. I run as fast as I can towards the figure at the base of the hill, towards my father standing and watching the flames. He turns to greet me, a sickening smile twisting his face, his arms empty. "Father, where's Daegu?" I cry, reaching for the hem of his tunic. His responding slap sends me to the ground, tears streaking down my face before I have a chance to hide them from him. Father doesn't respond, only turns back to the house, which is nearly entirely ablaze. There's only one place Daegu could be. I suspected something was amiss when Father sent me out for firewood. It's all my fault. I find my feet and dash for the door, Father's laughter echoing behind me as the flames lick my heels. "Perhaps this blaze will end 2 useless sons!" he jeers. The house groans under the assault of the fire, and the smoke stings my eyes and rips my throat as I push further into the flames. Hysterical wails echo from the back room as I fight the instinct to turn away from the sweltering heat. I kick at the closed door, desperation rising in my throat as tears and mucus stream down my face, obstructing my vision. The door finally collapses under my weight, and the acrid smell of burning skin and hair fills my nostrils. I can't help the vomit that spews from my lips. I reach for Daegu, his mossy green skin bubbling on one side. The wails have stopped now. I run for the door as a beam collapses behind us, knocking us both to the ground. My head burns and it all hurts. It hurts so bad. I cry harder, crawling for the bundle of blankets before me. The edge of the blanket feeds the flames around it, and I beat it out furiously as I bundle Daegu back into my arms. I run blindly, praying that we find our way out through the flame and smoke. Fresh air hits my lungs suddenly, and I collapse in front of my father's looming shadow, sobbing as I rock Daegu back and forth in my arms. I'm covered in bile and mucus and soot, but all I do is try to soothe Daegu, promising that we're okay now, that it'll all be better soon. My father's foot lashes out, finding purchase under Daegu's tiny body and sending him flying from my arms. I scream, reaching for him as my father's boot lands on my back, pinning me to the ground between my shoulder blades. The sneer is evident in his voice as his lips come so close they almost touch my ear. "You disgusting, pathetic excuse of a son. He's already dead. You should have joined him." All I can see is a tiny black and green hand peeking out from black-edged wool, twisted at a wrong angle a few feet from my face. I vomit again. The scar on the back of my head burns as infant wails drag me back to consciousness. My breath rattles in my chest as I watch the orc place Daegu, not Deeg, forced into the arms of the cloaked human. And it seems as though a little rat has followed your wretched scent all the way here. I force myself to breathe, to fight the fog lingering in my mind. Everything is pure agony, but I cannot fail this time. I will save Forrest where I could not save Daegu. Come out, wherever you are!" The orc leader sneers into the darkness. His back is turned to me now, but there are too many of his men around us for me to make a move. Besides, until Forrest is safe, anything I do to these orcs puts him in immediate danger. If they're already planning to kill him, they certainly won't be above using him to control me. As if to prove my point, the orc leader snatches Forrest from the hands of the cloaked human, thrusting him into the night air. Forrest wails at the harsh, sudden movement, his breathing hitching as though labored while he screams. "Put him down!" I roar, forcing myself to my hands and knees. Another blow lands between my shoulders, flattening me to the ground once again as I reach towards Forrest. "Please," I say, my voice breaking, "just put him down." The orc leader turns to me, his face spreading into a gleeful grin. "Tell your little rat to come out or I'll throw him," he says, staring down at me. He makes a sudden move with Forrest and laughs as I twitch forward as if to catch him, and Forrest begins to cry anew. There's movement in the underbrush before a slight, female figure emerges. Karissa. Her hands shake as she holds them up, her bottom lip stiff in defiance despite the terror seeping into her scent. The orc leader begins to laugh, swinging Forrest around so that Karissa has a full view of the squirming, bawling baby. "A human woman?" He mocks through his laughs. "Gods damn it," I think, furious with the stupid woman. Why can't she stay out of anything? Why she would have wandered into the woods alone, I can't even hazard a guess. The only thing that's clear is that I've gone from having one massive liability in this fight to 2. "You'll never get away with this!" Karissa screams at the orc leader, fury evident in her voice. Her conviction shocks me, as does the complete lack of fear in her voice. Her scent, unfortunately, tells a different story. The orc leader opens his mouth, likely to jeer at her some more, when he's interrupted by a smaller orc on the outside of the group. "Hey, boss," he says, his voice echoing alongside Forrest's cries. "I think our little rat left a trail. There are strips of clothing everywhere." The orc leader hisses, turning to Karissa again as her eyes go wide.
Chapter 14. Karissa. The blood drains from my face, but I refuse to tremble or shrink from the orc's wrath. The leader takes a step towards me, menacing. Forrest whimpers in his grip. He holds him like a sack of flour, head unsupported, as if he's little more than an afterthought. The cloaked figure holds a hand against Forrest's head in silent reprimand, and the orc adjusts his grip with a grumble. I'm not certain what role the cloaked creature plays in their group, but at least he seems to have the health of the infant in mind. But for how long? You know what we do to rats in my clan? The lead orc smiles like a knife, more to display his vast array of sharp teeth than to demonstrate any friendliness. We control the infestation. Traps, poison, dismemberment. We pluck them out, one by one, because they always lead to more rats. I hope that's a metaphor. My throat is dry. But if it's not, have you considered being less filthy? His hand leaves the infant and sails towards my face. I watch it with a sense of fatalism. Yes, Karissa, this is what happens when you provoke an orc in order to create some sort of delay. But his hand never reaches my cheek. The cloaked figure intercepts it smoothly and redirects it back to cradle Forrest. We need to leave now. The slender cloaked person's voice sounds strange, as if disguised intentionally and shrouded behind several layers of cloth. The baby is our primary purpose. The gold-toothed orc leader glowers at the smaller cloaked figure, but appears to concede. I panic. I never panic, but everything is going wrong. I force myself to take a deep, fortifying breath and focus. These orcs may have uncovered my plans, but there's still time. The others will be on the way now. I can't let them escape into the woods. This might be my last chance to save Forrest. No, not my. I have one ally here, as unlikely as he might be. He lies beneath 3 full-grown orcs, and his breaths are still wheezing and laboured. If I were the betting sort, I'd have to admit that our odds of success aren't great. But if I paid attention to odds, I'd still be a slave in a human bunker. The Burning Sun clan saved me from a life of servitude and suffering. I will do everything within my power to save their chieftain's son. Inzo. Blood still drips from his nostril, and he wipes it on his even more bloody arm. He's definitely in no shape to fight, but we have no choice. Enzo looks at me, and his eyes look surprisingly alert before he stares again at the infant. I know he tries to persuade others he is a ruthless and selfish orc, but surely even he would protect a helpless child. You need to buy us some time. Enzo explodes with strength. He throws off the 3 orcs holding him down, and the muscles on his back ripple with the exertion. One falls against a tree, and the others have no time to scramble to their feet before he tackles their leader. He tackles the orc low, just beneath his knees, and he falls backward like a large tree. He releases the baby in order to break his fall, and Forrest squeals in delight at the rush of air. He has no idea what danger he's in as he plummets to the ground. I scream, but Enzo has already caught him. His attack, sudden and shocking, was planned and performed with surprising precision. It's a physical effort to keep my jaw from dropping in shock, and the orcs also gape at him from the ground. He's already running. Thankfully, the orcs neglected to restrain me, thinking me a helpless human. I follow after him into the dark woods, but hide in a bush when the orcs scramble close behind me. Their leader shouts in fury, directing his fellow orcs to chase after Enzo, but the cloaked figure remains curiously calm. Thorns from the bush bite into my skin, but I ignore them. My heartbeat thuds heavy in my ears, so loud I have to struggle to listen for the orcs. I need a second to calm my heart and my nerves, but I don't have any to spare. The cloaked figure was right about one thing. Forest is the priority here. I have to find some way to help. I tear another cloth from my shawl and stick it to one of the thorns on the bush. I might not be able to fight orcs, but I can lead other orcs to the fight. I move quickly, desperate not to lose track of Inzo and Forest. The sound of footprints is muted, and I'm afraid that I already have. I'm not certain all the orcs have left in pursuit of Inzo, but I can't stay hidden any longer. I harden my heart and walk further into the clearing, leaving more strips of cloth behind. I tilt my head, straining to listen, when my blood freezes and my skin prickles with the awareness of being watched. I am not alone in the clearing. Unarmed, I brandish a stick. I expect the figure to call out to the other orcs or attack, but the figure merely stands in the clearing, observing. They must have seen me fixing cloth to the underbrush, but my trail seems of little concern to them. The figure looks eerie in the moonlight, as though one of the tree's shadows has come to life. No. The shadows move more. The figure remains unnaturally still. I take a step back, stick still in hand. It has a sharp end, but it's old and brittle. I can tell by its weight that it will break harmlessly against the flesh of anyone I strike with it, but I hope that the dark woods conceals its uselessness. The cloaked person tilts their head. It's a subtle movement, but it sends a bolt of adrenaline down my spine. I tighten my grip on the stick. Splinters burrow into my skin, and I think, hysterically, that at least I probably won't have to worry about them later. They extend their arm towards a copse of cedars that sit beside a small, bubbling stream. Follow the directions on the trees. The figure takes a step back, arm still extended. You can find them there. What? Is this a trick? Why are they helping me? I thought they were on the other clan's side. Why are you helping me now? I demand. My voice shakes, jumpy with nerves, but I bring the stick down from the front of my body. And why didn't you help me earlier? The figure refuses to reply. They sink back into the shadows as if they had never been there at all. It makes no sense. I have no reason to trust this stranger, especially not with how cozy they seem to be with the enemy clan. But I've lost track of Inzo, and all I can hear in the clearing is the sound of crickets and the occasional snap of twigs. An animal howls in the distance. As a human in the woods alone, I'm nothing but delicious prey. I can't stay in one place, and I don't have the luxury of exploring all the different places Inzo might have run. It can't hurt to check out the trees just in case. I leave scraps of cloth behind me, marking the way. The burning Sun Clan will come, I tell myself. They're on their way even as I walk further into the woods, further away from our base. I haven't given up on rescue, not yet. But the idea of it is beginning to seem as flimsy as the stick in my hand, a mirage I cling to in the face of the enormous dark woods and the enemy orcs who lurk within. I'll find Forest, I know that much, but what comes next might rely solely on me.
Chapter 15. Enzo. I run deeper into the woods with the baby nestled against my chest. It's difficult to run with someone so small, and I find myself whispering small apologies every time a step jostles him from his sleep. The salt of his tears have dried on his face, and now he rests, exhausted as I run. I know the feeling, little one. I feel like I could sleep for a week and still be tired. I force myself forward at a brutal pace. If that cursed clan finds me, I'll be sleeping for much longer than that. I don't even want to think about what they've got in mind for the baby. My legs and arms burn with effort, but I press forward. The other orcs aren't stealthy. I can hear them close behind me, and they're gaining ground. My familiarity with the woods has been my only advantage. That advantage is gone. I've never traveled so far in these woods before, not at night. An animal howls. It's close. Orcs aren't the only dangerous creatures in these woods. I don't think I can survive another fight, and certainly not while protecting a baby. It took all of my energy to escape. I don't have much left. If it hadn't been for that human woman, Karissa, I might not have worked up the energy to flee at all. I hope that she managed to run back to the base. This was more difficult than it should have been to leave her behind, but I can't protect both of them. Surely she has some sense in her head. If she's stupid enough to follow me again, she'll be caught by the other orcs with ease. The thought of it makes my stomach curdle, even though it's not my problem. She must have run, I assure myself. No human would be so foolish as to face down a group of enemy orcs. Although she did try to bait the leader into hitting her across the face. The memory of it is searing in its intensity. I nearly launched all the orcs holding me down at that moment. And then what would have happened to Forrest? It's better that she stays far from me. I don't like the peculiar feeling I get whenever she's nearby, as though my skin is 2 sizes too small. Forrest cries out in his sleep, and I give him my finger to suckle. Orcish infants this young need nearly constant milk, and I suppose hybrids are similar. I scan the clearing. If I can keep Forrest quiet long enough, I might be able to hide as the orcs pass and then race back towards our base. His face twists and darkens into a dark green. It's a pretty large if. One well-timed squall and we'll be caught. Hush now, I murmur. Shh. He settles, but I don't trust his sleep enough to hide. We'll have to keep moving. Perhaps I can travel in a large circle around the orcs, working my way around them, and just hope I don't get lost or run into a pack of wolves. A chill brings me to a stop. Something is wrong. I feel watched. I turn, and there is the same cloaked figure I fought before, stepping out from the shadows as if he were a part of them. I snarl low in my throat, and the infant nuzzles my chest. This man is a strong fighter. At least I think they're a man. It's difficult to tell. Their robe conceals them from head to toe. They could be a well-spoken, 2-legged Hokeen for all I know. The cloaked figure steps toward me, and I stand tall. This will be a bitter fight, and I cannot afford to show any weakness. I look for a soft, safe hiding place for the infant. I don't trust my arms to hold him in the midst of a battle, not when I struggle to hold him now. He moves his arm gracefully, directing his sleeve to my left. Only the slight suggestion of a shadowed finger extending slightly past his long sleeve is any indication that he's a living being, and not just a creature of the shadows. Who are you? Leave. The voice is low, urgent. If you go there, you'll meet your group. He points just beyond a small group of cedar trees so close that their scent tickles my nose. And why should I trust you? For all I know, he's leading me into an ambush, but the clatter of the orcs remains behind him. We don't have much time before they reach us. If it's an ambush, wouldn't there be less of them chasing me? He doesn't answer. He tightens his cloak, and I see that his body is smaller than I'd thought. Protect the baby well. I was planning on it. My voice carries a slight edge in my whisper. I don't like secrets, and I don't trust people with hidden identities who whisper from the shadows. At least show me your face. I want to look into his eyes and see what type of person he is. The man steps back into the shadows instead. I'm left alone in the woods with advancing orcs, an infant, and a damned riddle to solve. Why would this guy fight me one minute and help me the next? I think back to our fight. He could have wounded me fatally several times, and although it pains my ego to admit it, he must have pulled his blows. How else could one knife leave so many superficial cuts? Why? Can I trust him? Do I have any other choice? Perhaps he was putting on a show for the orc allies he was preparing to betray. Or perhaps he's been sent to send me to my final slaughter. It's a gamble, and I'm not feeling lucky. I'm just too exhausted for any alternative to be true. If it's an ambush, so be it. I will deal with my fate then. Forrest fidgets in my arms, and I know it won't be long before his hunger wakes him. I won't have any chance to hide from the enemy clan once he's crying. My only choice is to hope the cloaked man is betraying the right people, and that there are allies waiting for me nearby. I turn towards the cedar trees. Be careful of the people around you, the voice calls to me from the shadows. Think wisely. Who is your enemy? People who whisper nonsense in the woods, I say, but my mind has already seized immediately on a name. Loki. The answer comes to me so naturally that I almost say it out loud. I see his foolish smile every time I close my eyes, and I live with the consequences of his leadership every time I open them. It's his poor leadership that has brought these enemy orcs within our walls when they should have been strung up as a warning to others outside of them. Of course, Loki is my greatest rival. He always has been. Obviously, any enemy of my clan is an enemy of mine, but my inability to remove Loki from power has haunted me every day of my life. So why am I risking my life to save this child, the son of a commander who proudly serves my adversary? Because I couldn't save Daegu. For a moment my mind is all fire, and then Forrest stirs. His forehead wrinkles in displeasure. Gingerly I trace his black eyebrows with the edge of my thumb until he's soothed back to slumber. The same trick worked on Daegu years before, and there's a pitiful ache in my chest. A branch snaps behind me, and another orc curses loudly. I hold my breath until they pass, praying that Forrest remains asleep. My enmity with Loki might be murky, but these enemies are clearly defined. I sneak towards the cedar trees with Forrest in tow, hoping...
Chapter 16. Karissa. The cloaked man's voice echoes in my head as I stumble through the woods, relying on the moon to light my way. I'd seen gouges on the trees when I first entered the forest, but hardly paid any mind to them. If he hadn't called my attention back to them, I never would have looked at them twice. I'm terrified that I'm wandering right back into the arms of those awful orcs, but the idea of losing Forrest and Inzo in these woods, of not being able to bring them home, is scarier than those orcs could ever be. I find another marked tree, a deep vertical gouge about a foot long in its trunk, almost hidden by the pattern of bark growing around it. I stop, tearing at the hem of my shirt to tie another scrap of white fabric to the underbrush at the base of the tree. The moonlight makes the white practically glow in the dark, framed by the deep green moss and earthy tones of the forest underbrush. I raise my head, looking in either direction for another tree bearing a similar vertical mark. My eyes strain against the darkness, the moonlight fading in and out as clouds move in the night sky, when I see it. Another tree, about 15 yards away, with a gouge slightly more diagonal than the last. I race to the tree, tearing again at the hem of my shirt, listening intently to the sounds of the forest around me for any sign of danger. I tie another scrap of white fabric to the nearby underbrush and look for the next tree. I continue on like this for what feels like hours, every twig snapping or shadow moving, sending my heart leaping into my throat. My shirt is in tatters, ribbons of white fabric skimming my waist and navel as stray branches tear the skin on my arms and face while I run from tree to tree. Eventually, it occurs to me that the gouges on the trees are changing. Some are vertical, while others begin to lean diagonally and horizontally, as if pointing to something. I follow the direction of the gouges, wondering anxiously why there's been no sign of anything living in this forest, besides the marred trees and me. After finding about a half-dozen more marked trees, the woodline begins to thin out. I crouch low to the ground, trying to use the underbrush as coverage while squinting towards the clearing ahead of me. There are no sounds other than the crunching of leaves under my feet, and my heart begins to race in the eeriness of the woods. If someone was nearby, they'd know I was coming from a mile away just by the noise. There's a massive, looming shadow in the middle of the clearing, bigger than any house in burning sun. I cling to the bark of the tree I'm pressed against, my palms slick with sweat and my blood humming in my ears. If that thing is alive, I'm done for. Moonlight begins to filter through the branches of the trees again as the clouds part, and I realise the looming shadow is the biggest tree I've ever seen. Its trunk is the width of 3 houses put together, stretching so high up into the night that its branches looked like they held up the sky itself. My lips part in wonder as I gaze up at the tree. It must be centuries old. Every tree in the forest could be its great-great-grandchild. As my eyes wander back down the tree, I discover the clearing is actually not a clearing at all. The roots of this massive tree snake along the ground, leaving no room for anything other than moss to grow nearby. The ground looks like a roiling sea, waves of green and brown and tan stretching out from the massive tree for tens of yards, before settling back into the floor of the forest and allowing other trees room to breathe. I thank the gods for my long legs as I start to pick my way towards the base of the tree, having to push up on some of the larger roots to swing my legs over them and drop down to the other side. Footsteps echo off the tree, and I duck under a root to hide, my heart in my throat once more. My hands scrape the ground under me frantically, searching for anything I can use to defend myself, when I hear the happy coo of an infant and freeze. I stand up so quickly that I knock my head on the root above me, stars bursting in my vision as I turn wildly to locate Forest. A bark of laughter sounds on my left, and I'm so relieved that I can't find it in me to scowl at Inzo. I practically throw myself over the roots, rushing to meet the two of them as Enzo strides through the roots like they're nothing, the smile on his face fading as he surveys the surrounding tree line for threats. Tears begin running down my face, and I make no attempt to hide them as I throw myself at the two of them. Enzo stiffens under my embrace, while Forest squeals and grabs for strands of my hair. Enzo thrusts Forest at me like he can't wait to be rid of him, avoiding my gaze and creating as much distance between us as possible. The second Forest is in my arms. My knees give out underneath me from relief. I rock him as I laugh through my tears and kiss his little face and hands while he chews on a strand of my dark hair. Inzo stands like a statue over us, an emotion I can't recognise hardening his face, before he turns away to watch the woodline. I do my best to pull myself together, wiping the tears from my face and kissing the top of Forest's head for the umpteenth time before climbing to my feet again. "Thank you," I say to Inzo's back, my voice breaking. He stiffens at the sound of my voice, grunting in response without turning around. His back, shoulders, and arms are covered with dried blood and gouges, deep purple bruises already beginning to take shape across his olive-green skin. "You're hurt," I say, gently touching his arm. Inzo turns towards me suddenly, jumping at my fingers, brushing his elbow. A few hours ago, had he moved towards me that quickly, I probably would have fallen on my butt in fear. But looking at him now, after everything this night has brought upon the two of us, the impression of the arrogant, selfish orc I knew a few hours ago has vanished. He risked everything for Forest, just like me. Inzo looks shocked at the concern in my voice before that same cold, hard wall comes down over his face again. "Don't touch me," he says as he turns around, his back to Forest and I once more. I can't help the smile that rises to my lips. He's actually not scary at all, I realise. He's just scared of everybody else. I begin again, only for him to cut me off. "Don't talk to me either." I stifle a laugh, and he whirls around again, glowering. Before either of us can say anything, the sounds of several footsteps echo off the trees around us, and I throw myself under a nearby branch. "Get up, or else you might really knock yourself out this time," he says, a hint of laughter in his otherwise gruff voice. It's my turn to glower this time, as I hiss, "What if it's them? We need to hide." "It's not," Inzo replies in a matter-of-fact tone, just as Irish, Loki, and several other orcs appear in the tree line. I almost don't recognise Irish at first, his features twisted in anguish and his eyes glassy and far away. The second Irish sees the bundle in my arms, he breaks into a run, moving at impressive speed and leaping over roots in his path, the others not far behind. Irish comes to a shockingly controlled halt before me, his eyes frantically roaming over Forest, looking for any kind of injury as he takes him gently into his arms. He finds none, and begins to weep, clutching his son to his chest, while Forrest's tiny hands reach for Irish's face. The sight brings tears to my eyes again, as Loki's hand lands firmly on his friend's shoulder, the emotion clear on his face. "Let's go home," Loki says to us all in a soft voice. I turn, looking for Inzo, to find the place he occupied beside me empty. My head swings around, surveying the clearing, but I see no sign of him. I meet Loki's eyes, and there's something knowing there that confuses me. Where did Enzo go?
Chapter 17. Inzo. I step back into the shadow of the tree as Irish and the others come forward. Karissa stays rooted to the spot, and I watch as Irish tears toward her, clearly anxious to once again have possession of his son. As usual, I'm only a piece of the background. Irish takes the child in his arms and weeps, and his emotion overwhelms me with disgust. I turn away from the scene, telling myself I'm disgusted by his weakness, his inability to keep track of his own child. In truth, I'm disgusted because I know that I'm the product of a man who never felt anything other than hate and rage, and because I know I'm just like him. I pause once I'm under the cover of the tree line, turning back to watch the scene play out from afar. Carissa's eyes are still on Irish and Forrest, new tears flowing down her golden cheeks. Loki's eyes find mine despite the distance, and he holds my gaze before clapping a hand on Irish's shoulder. The group turns back towards camp, but Karissa stays where she is, her head whipping around. Is she looking for me? Her human eyes could never see me from this distance, not in the dark. But still, she looks. I can't quite identify the emotion in my throat as she turns away at last, Loki following her without a glance behind him. I watch her as she picks her way through the roots back towards the forest. She's beautiful, even from a distance, but she's the stupidest woman I've ever met. Even for a human. I shake my head, turning away from them finally, taking a roundabout way back to the camp. Should I keep an eye on her? I think to myself, moving quietly through familiar trees. Almost immediately, I realize how ridiculous I'm being. If she's going to do something stupid again, it's not my problem, I grumble out loud as I kick at the forest floor. I don't have time to babysit her. Besides, I don't owe her a goddamn thing. It's been a week since Windcleaver's attempted kidnapping, and I haven't had a moment of peace since. Irish and Camille have been here with the baby nearly every day, thanking me every other word. I told them if they were truly grateful, they'd leave me be, but they haven't listened. Even the babe ogles me as if I'm suddenly made of gold. In truth, I prefer his company to everyone else's, even if he poops himself. Admitting that might further encourage their frequent and unwelcome visits, however, so I keep the feeling to myself. The last visit the little family made, Irish asked me to be the child's godfather, which nearly made me spit my drink all over them. I rejected his suggestion quickly and vehemently. If he'd want his child anywhere near the likes of me, perhaps he shouldn't have one at all. This sentiment, too, I keep to myself, though it makes me wonder when I became soft enough to adhere to social graces. Irish, Camille, and Forrest haven't been my only visitors, however far from it. There is a revolving door of people who suddenly wish to be near me. Jorgen visited, apologizing for the lack of security that led to the base being infiltrated by enemies, and asking my opinions on current base security. Why he apologized to me, I still don't understand, but I had no problem telling him exactly how he failed that night. To his credit, it seemed like he actually listened. It's as if I've suddenly sprung back into existence. Every member of this clan was perfectly content to avoid me before, pretending I was as much a part of the clan as the dirt under their feet. You save a baby and suddenly everyone wants to be your friend. Loki stops in frequently, sometimes with sometimes without. While my cousin and I have never been close, he has kept most of his visits mercifully brief, knowing how disagreeable I find these social calls. I'm tempted to thank him for this small kindness, but remember that he's tried to put me back to work. I hate the idea of holier-than-thou Loki playing hero at my expense, helping his poor lost cousin find purpose. Besides, there's no work for a cripple like me. The most annoying of all my visitors, however, is Karissa. She's at my doorstep every day like clockwork, a wicker basket on her arm and a knowing look on her face that drives me insane. She brings all manner of oddities in that stupid little basket and always has something to eat. I secretly appreciate the variation in my diet. For the last few months, all I've eaten has been the gruel I figured out how to make myself. Carissa's brought me smoked meats, stews, fresh roasted vegetables from the community garden, and all manner of sweets. Yesterday she showed up more excitable than usual, thrusting the basket towards me to reveal a lumpy, handmade bread with edible flower petals crudely pressed into the top. I couldn't help but laugh at the childlike pride that lit up her face like the sun, and the sparkle in those rich brown eyes as she grinned. My response was clearly not correct, I realized, when she swung the basket at my head, glaring at me, but the bread itself was quite good. I realize with chagrin that I'm smiling at the memory, and quickly push my face back into a standard scowl. "Penny for your thoughts, Inzo?" Mary asked sweetly, turning away from Loki. I'd forgotten I wasn't alone. Mary and Loki commonly visit together, discussing things amongst themselves, rarely pushing me to participate. It's one of the better arrangements when it comes to visitors, but annoying nonetheless. "I think you've been spending too much time with Vala if you're using silly human phrases," I grumble at her. She laughs in response, and Loki smiles warmly at his good-humored friend, as he calls her. I'm not foolish enough to believe that's all she is. "We were just discussing our plans for Windcleaver," Loki says, turning to me. I grunt in response, hoping they'll go back to discussing the plan between themselves and leave me out of it. "You're one of our best strategists, so your thoughts would be extremely helpful," Loki prompts. No such luck, I realize with a sigh. "You have other strategists, and I'm out of practice." I respond curtly, trying to exclude myself from the conversation once more. "Given the way you single-handedly saved the commander's son and outsmarted an entire pack of enemy orcs, alone and at a disadvantage," Loki retorts, "I hardly think that's the case. I want you to lead the attack." "No." I shoot back, my temper flaring. Who does he think he is? Trying to make a fool of his crippled cousin. Haven't they all pestered me enough? Loki opens his mouth to say something more when a loud knock interrupts us. "What, Enzo, you're suddenly locking your door?" I groan aloud at Carissa's deafening voice. Of course she's here to add to the misery of this whole afternoon. I ignore the amused glance Loki and Mary pass one another as I begrudgingly answer the door. "Yeah, to keep you out," I snap at her the moment the doors open. She grins widely in response, completely unaffected by my tone. It seems like every time I see her, she becomes more beautiful and more maddening. The pink of her cheeks and lips glow in the afternoon sun, her dark hair glimmering like there are hidden strands of golden thread woven into her hair. "You're gonna have to do better than that," she quips back, a sparkle in her eyes. "I'm busy," I respond sharply. "Go away." I go to slam the door, hoping to wipe the smug smile off her face, but the door stops suddenly. I turn back in shock, concerned that I've slammed the door on her hand or foot, when I realize she shoved a rock into the threshold of the door. She giggles at the evident horror on my face, and my temper flares again. Stupid, 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 I think to myself, for showing such obvious weakness in front of her. "Like I said," she says, a playful tone in her voice, "you're gonna have to do better than that. Stop coming here. I don't want your awful cooking." I jab at her, remembering how proud she was of her silly homemade loaf of bread. She giggles again. "Good thing it's not my cooking today, then," she teases. "No one has ever grated on me quite like this human woman. She's absolutely infuriating, her very presence gnawing at me. If I hate her so much, why can't I stop thinking about her?"
My parents sold me to the dark market.
I am the avatar of chaos, and nothing will stop me from fulfilling the prophecy.
Looks like you're the only one left. Take a step forward.
It's her. She's the woman from the prophecy. My key to godhood.
This is Delia. Starting price is 3 ducats.
You will wed soon and restore the Enoch family name.
Okay. I'll lower it down even more. 2 ducats. Who wants to buy Delia for 2 ducats?
She is my mate. Destiny has foretold it.
You don't know anything about me, and you want me to marry you?
You're nothing but a human toy to be used and discarded.
Hold on. How about 1 ducat? Does anyone want her?
A gilded cage is still a cage.
6 ducats. 6 ducats for Delia. I'll give you revenge on your parents if you marry me.
Okay, I'll marry you.
Godhood is mine for the taking.
Chapter 18. Karissa. I leap over the rock I jammed in his doorway, and Inzo glares at me as I land just before him in the entryway. I thrust the basket forward, taking off into the house, and he catches it before it tumbles to the ground. I laugh as he curses under his breath, following me into the house and grouching the whole way. I stop short when I see Mary and Loki seated on the old, overstuffed couch in the living room. Inzo did say he was busy, I think to myself. But then again, he says that whether or not it's actually true. Mary and Loki both stand up as I cross into the living room, greeting me warmly. The chieftain and I are well acquainted, thanks to the fact that Loki makes it his business to know every refugee brought into the clan. But Mary and I are genuinely close. I'd apologise for this annoying intrusion, but you're all rather annoying. Inzo grumbles, as shoves the wicker basket onto the kitchen counter, not even bothering to look inside. I roll my eyes at him as he willfully ignores everyone in the room, plunking down into a well-worn armchair near the couch with a surly look on his face. "Help me in the kitchen?" I ask Mary, ignoring Inzo's sour facade and linking my arm in hers. She grins at me, shooting a pointed look at Loki over her shoulder as we turn away from the 2 orcs. Inzo's house is cosy, in an abandoned bachelor pad type of way. The living room where we leave Loki and Inzo is the first room in the house, open to a large kitchen that would be beautiful if it wasn't in absolute shambles. Underneath a thin layer of grime, dark hardwood floors peek out around thickly woven carpets, made of deeply coloured textiles that had certainly seen better days. Spotted throughout the living area and kitchen are several large old windows that had been shrouded in heavy, dusty drapes until yesterday. I'd opened them to let a little light in, hoping it would combat the dust and gloom, and while the sunlight helped marginally, it also revealed the further disrepair of the house. Hence my plan for today. I swipe the basket Inzo placed on the counter as we cross into the kitchen, and Mary arches an eyebrow at me. I peel back the linen over the top of the basket to reveal what I'd brought. Flour, sugar, butter, and eggs. I don't have to explain the ingredients to Mary. After all, she's the one who taught me how to make pastries. She grins widely at me, resting her elbows on the island and leaning forward to place her face between her hands. "You know, that recipe has been known to bring many an orc to his knees," she says with a mischievous look on her face, keeping her voice low as we listen to Loki and Inzo bicker in the other room. I feel the pink rise in my cheeks as I wave away her insinuation. "Which is exactly what makes them such a convincing bribe," I reply. After coming out of the woods a week ago, I couldn't stop thinking about all of the strange contradictions in Inzo's behaviour, so I did a little digging. There were certainly those in the clan that thought poorly of him, but there were just as many inconsistencies in people's impressions of him as there were in his behaviour. The only consistent thing about him, as far as I can tell, is that he's alone. His isolation only became more pronounced after what happened on the training field a few months back. Enzo had always been a fierce warrior, one of the best in the clan, and brought his habit of taking things too far onto the training field with him. He'd train at strange hours, according to some of the clan's people, and his accident occurred in the middle of the night. No one seems to know exactly what happened, only that an earth-shattering roar woke up those who lived near the training field. To hear witnesses tell it, The bones in Inzo's left arm looked as if they'd been shattered, hanging limply in his skin as if it were a burlap sack. He refused to let anyone touch him or help, and returned alone to this house on the hill, where he's stayed since. The thought of Enzo suffering alone, refusing even healers, makes my heart ache. In truth, he's a brave, kind orc who seems to think incredibly lowly of himself, which explains why he behaves the way he does with everyone. He's all bark and no bite. I explain all of this to Mary in a low voice as we piddle about the kitchen, wiping dust off of the surfaces and trying to create an acceptable space for handling food. She nods thoughtfully, sneaking glances at me as I speak, a look on her face that I can't quite place. Inzo and Loki's voices stop in the other room, and we both freeze, fearing that our conversation has been overheard. When their voices start up again, I turn to Mary. He's always alone. He needs someone to take care of him, or at least show him how to take care of himself, I tell her, and she smiles knowingly. She opens her mouth to respond when Inzo's booming voice echoes from the other room. I can take care of myself. We both jump at the sudden intrusion, and I feel myself flush at having had my private motivations for visiting revealed. The fright passes quickly, however, and turns into irritation. You can't even throw the trash outside, I retort over my shoulder. Mary guffaws beside me as Inzo and Loki appear in the doorway, Inzo visibly fuming. Is your little life so boring that you must come and meddle with mine? Inzo shoots back, suddenly glowering down at me. I put my hands on my hips and raise my gaze to his, refusing to allow his massive size to intimidate me. What life? All you do is sit in this house all day and create more messes, I counter. Inzo flings his good hand into the air exasperatedly as he turns around, moving to stalk back into the living room. The idea of being dismissed absolutely enrages me, so I follow him into the next room. Oh, so you're suddenly too important for this conversation, I snap. God, he gets under my skin. Everyone else certainly seems to think so. Why the hell else would they bother me all the time? Enzo says as he whirls on me, arrogance written all over the proud jut of his chin. Besides, I don't answer to you. My mouth snaps open to respond when Loki lets out a low whistle behind us, reminding the two of us that we're not alone. My cheeks ruddy at the realization, and I run my hands through my hair, trying to smooth out the frazzled feeling Enzo always seems to bring out in me. Enzo grunts and collapses back into his chair with a victorious look at having had the last word. I'm about to say something to wipe the smug smirk off his face when Mary giggles. You two could be taken for husband and wife arguing like that. Every head in the room snaps to her, and her eyes widen as both Enzo and I yell, Absolutely not! My cheeks flush scarlet at the image that plants itself in my head at the idea of Enzo and I being married, and then flush an even deeper shade at our sudden rejection of the idea. I can't help but feel a pang of hurt in response to his sound refusal of me, even in passing. I try to slow my racing heart, squeezing my hands into fists as I force away the sting of his dismissal. It's not like I want him anyway, I tell myself bitterly. I almost believe it.
Chapter 19. Inzo. I observe how Carissa's face goes beet red, ignoring the flippant remark for my own sanity. I don't have the luxury to consider it, but it's obvious she's upset by the idea. I scowl at the couple. Out. Get out. Mary's eyes boggle, but she looks to Loki, who remains nonchalant about the whole affair, maybe even a little amused. Inzo, he says, she didn't mean anything by it. I set out, all of you. Carissa's head whips in my direction and she goes redder, a defiant expression on her face. Even as she stands stock still, the couple finally relinquishes, Mary apologizing profusely. I'm sorry, Enzo, she says as they make their way out the front door. I shouldn't have said anything. It was stupid of me. Loki seems to finally realize that I'm serious. It's okay, Mary. We'll come back another time. He puts an arm around her, his gaze lingering on me before it strays to Carissa standing beside me and silently fuming. Take care, Enzo. When they're out of sight, I can breathe again. I glance down my nose at her, putting a hand out towards the door. Well, you might be able to scare them off, but I know better. You don't know anything. Carissa crosses her arms and stares me down, unamused. I know that I can't cook in a dump like this. She ignores my murderous look and begins to pick up trash by the fistful. Get me a bag. Maybe a few. We're going to need them. Rage lashes through me. How dare she tell me what to do in my own house? But to my surprise, I find myself doing as she says, storming into the kitchen to find them, grumbling all the while. Come into my house, doing whatever she pleases. Who does she think she is? When I return, relief lights up her face and my inner dialogue goes silent. Oh, good. I wasn't sure you had any. Here, she says, handing the trash over to me. We'll get this place whipped into shape together in no time, flat. Together, I think, hating that I like the sound of it. She works quickly with me just trying to catch up with her. But there's a harmony to our efforts. I've never done this sort of thing before, but she's a patient teacher, and before I know it, I can see the hardwood floor again. It's liberating. Not just the cleanliness, but being in her presence is a step into the sunlight after living so long in the darkness. I remain, by all appearances, irritated, but my heart swells with joy. That's when I realize I must have gone crazy. There's no other explanation. When the chores are finished to her satisfaction, she claps her hands off and smiles at me. See? That wasn't so hard, was it? I chew on my lower lip and issue a non-committal shrug. Her laugh is infectious and bright. It melts my hard exterior, and I almost give in before I remember myself. What are you laughing at? You, she says, cooling from her outburst. You're so bad at pretending. I'm not pretending, I protest, the remark coming off more emphatically than I intended and giving it an unbelievable edge. I growl at myself in frustration. Carissa laughs again and pats me with her delicate touch. Frisson shoots up my arm, but a singular excitement overwhelms me. She's not afraid of me, not even close. Come on, she says, beckoning me into the kitchen. I'm starved. It's not like I have anything to eat. She cocks her head at me in confusion. You have flour, sugar, butter, and eggs. I'm sure we'll be able to figure out something. Does your oven still work? Of course it does, I grumble. Good, she says quickly, pulling out the raw ingredients without asking me first. Then we'll make some pastries. It's not hard. I cross my arms and keep a distance, watching her work. She must have done this before because I can see the expertise in her every move. A strange lightness has come over me, and I try to stifle it before it makes a home in my tired soul. I don't like sweets. Too bad, she says simply, stirring the batter. Consider it a housewarming present. But I've lived here all my life. She glances over her shoulder at me with a disbelieving look. I would have hardly called this place a house before today. There's a fire under my skin when she looks at me like that, and I have to glance away. What has gotten into me? She laughs again, that high tinkle filling the house with her mirth. Then she sobers her expression and turns back to her work, placing a tray in the oven. They'll taste good, I promise. There's a heavy silence as we wait for the pastries to finish baking, where I do my best to not look at her for too long, and where she tries to make small talk that goes nowhere. We're standing too close together, both leaning against the counter and staring at the oven. If I shift my hand 2 inches over, we'd be touching. I wonder, in the silence, what it'd be like to hold her hand and... When the timer dings, I jump at the sound, my foul mood rushing back in. Damn it, I murmur under my breath in frustration. I've got them, she says, acting as if she hadn't seen me lose my cool. The oven opens and a delicious aroma billows out. They're ready. Can you get a few plates and forks? We reconvene at the table. She drizzles the pastries in a sugar glaze, then places 2 on a plate for me and 1 for her. We sit together, and she watches me expectantly as I sample one, taking my time. Trying to hate it, but I melt upon contact with the flaky little morsel that I shove the whole thing in my mouth, and then the next. Her smile is secretive and knowing as she takes a bite of her own before serving me up a few more. Here, they're yours if you want them. I wouldn't want to, I begin, trying to think of some excuse. But nothing comes as I sit across from Karissa, who has brought a little light into my dark world. It's just like the sugary little pastries. I want more, but simultaneously I'm afraid of what that would imply if I accepted her kindness. If I took more than I deserved. I stare down at the offering for a while before finally deciding something. Karissa, I say tightly, pushing the plate away. Her eyes flare with surprise and disappointment, but she keeps it in, waiting for me to continue. I don't think you should come back here after this. The others will spread rumors about you that aren't true, and It's hard to put it into words, but I have to protect her. I don't want you here. Her lips are firm, and I think she's going to tear me down or cry or get angry. Instead, she takes another bite of her pastry and sets it down before speaking. Maybe that's true. She seems to have some doubts about that. But I know one thing for certain, you don't like to be alone. Don't tell me what. Let me finish, she interrupts quietly but sternly, so that I can't help but listen. If you don't want me here, fine. I won't come back, on the condition that you come outside and be a part of the clan again. But you need to stop acting like a jerk. You're not. I know better. Loki and the others know better too. You hide behind your resentment when all we want is to see you happy. She stands abruptly, leaving her pastries to go cold. I'll see myself out. I simmer at the table, listening for her soft footfalls. All at once I rise, nearly knocking the table over and chasing her down. She's in the living room gathering up her basket when I corner her against the sofa. My teeth are clenched, and my emotions run wildly out of control as I force her to turn and see me, her eyes going wide. You think you know me, human? You don't have the slightest clue who I am. Chapter 20. Inzo. Pressing my face close to hers, I feel her breath brushing my skin. My tusks almost touch her, and I'm aware how much I want them to rake them over her until she squirms beneath me. The thought shocks me, not intending to do anything other than scare her away by pinning her here at the sofa. I don't need her or anyone else in my life, despite what she seems to believe about me. I've always been alone, even as a child with a father who should have been my mentor and protector, but abandoned me in every way possible despite his physical presence. And yet she talks of how good I am. She truly has no idea. That is why I have no choice other than to show her. This is the way it was meant for me, and no human woman is going to come along and pretend she knows otherwise. Ever since we met, she seems to think she knows better, and now this apparently extends to her knowledge and understanding of me, of what I have been through and how I suffer. As usual, she looks back at me defiantly, her eyes determined and bold, always trying to show she is not shaken by my size or ferocity, always trying to assume she is equal in some way to the giant that stands before her. You're not scared of me? I ask, grinning. Because you should be. Before she even has a chance to answer with that smart mouth of hers, I find myself staring at her full, rosy lips, and then I am undone. My mouth crashes down upon hers as I claim it, my hand at her face as I push through those beautiful lips with my tongue. She gasps, sucking in the air from my own mouth as I possess hers, devouring her like the brutish, hungry orc that I am. A small whimper escapes her, and then her hands beat at my shoulders. She's so small, puny compared to me, and her slaps barely penetrate my skin. Her taste seeps into my system, both urging me on as it goes straight to my groin and angering me at the same time, and I want to kiss her and punish her. I want to let her know that she does not get to enter my life and determine how it will go and tell me who I am. Nobody makes these decisions for me, especially a human. I pin her waist with my body and, with my good hand, encase her wrists, pinning them over her head. She lets out a cry of discomfort as I show her my true nature, the real me, the strength that I really possess. Maybe the other members of my clan have been too lenient with these humans. I bury my head against the smooth skin of her neck, breathing her in and tasting her with my tongue before finding her lips again. A small groan escapes me as I sink back into her beautiful mouth, losing myself in it, forgetting why it was that I pinned her here in the first place. When her mouth becomes slack, and I feel the deep inhale of breath as hot tears start to stream down her face, I pull back, alarmed. The woman before me now is not the Karissa I know. The woman with all of the answers and the spirit of someone 10 times her size. Like this, she's almost unrecognizable, her beautiful features contorted into a look of pure fear. Her eyes are wild and her body starts to shake uncontrollably. Karissa? Shame and concern rack me. This was not what I expected from her. I merely wanted to bring her anger to the surface so that she would leave and never speak to me in the way she had earlier. My sole intention was to drive her away, to prove that she was wrong about me, and that I am an orc after all. A brutish, wild, untrustworthy orc. But not this. Certainly not this. She cowers as I retreat, her body hunched over in a way that I have not seen before. She's strong, so sure of herself, and it tears at my heart to see her in such a state. Karissa! The way she looks up at me sickens me, her eyes wide, her face in obvious shock. It is as though I am a monster, and I feel it in every bone of my body, in every drop of blood that courses through my veins. Karissa! Her eyes are on me, and yet they are not, as though she is staring through me or seeing something or someone else completely. She wraps her hands around her head as she shakes back and forth, as though she now is in the grip of pain or madness. It's a feeling I know well. Please, stop, I don't want this. She trembles as she speaks, her words muffled by her hands as she covers her face with her hands. Panic surges through me. What is happening? I attempt to approach her, but she cowers like a dog. Please, she begs, her voice so much different to how I know it. It's smaller somehow, as though the real Karissa has been taken and replaced with a terrified girl. There's nothing I can do to get through to her, and I wrap my arm around her, despite her fear and reluctance to let me. I would never do anything to harm her. It was all nothing but an act. A selfish, irresponsible act meant to satisfy my own needs to be right, and to take back control from a woman that was just trying to help me, who wanted to see the good in me and wanted me to see it as well. But this is not something she is willing to see at this moment. How could she even know that? All she has seen is the stupid and selfish acts of a violent orc that is only ever aware of and concerned for his own needs. When I look into her scared eyes, I see that she is not even there. She's somewhere far in the distance, in another time and place, and it's a state that I recognize. If she is indeed like me, then she has kept it well hidden. Pity for her wraps itself around my heart, makes my very being ache. I, more than anyone, know what this feels like. Terrifying, lonely, and hopeless. I have no idea what has happened to her in her past, and in truth, I almost do not want to envisage it. All I know is that it was something hideous, a dark and foul thing that has traumatized this woman. She doesn't react when I embrace her, as though she is absent now in mind and body. Shh, I whisper, stroking her long, dark hair. It will be all right, Karissa. It takes a while, and I am not sure how long we stand there for as I gently try to coax her back to me. Eventually the tears stop, and I feel her arms move to my waist. Her hands tremble as she clings to me. I grip her tightly, supporting the weight of her body effortlessly. She stills, and I give a sigh of relief, hoping that she is now free of whatever is plaguing her, for the moment at least. Her body becomes slack, and I look down at her beautiful face, my own softening further when I see she is now asleep. I reach down and pick her up, her breathing now deeper, though the sobs still live in her throat. What am I to do now?
Chapter 21. Karissa. I squeeze my eyes shut against the bright light, my head pounding. I pull the quilt up over my head and turn away from the glare, breathing in the heady scent of pine sap, smoke, and something vaguely floral. Wait, my bed doesn't smell like this. I shoot up from under the covers and press my back firmly to the wall, blinking against the sudden light as I try to get a read on my surroundings. The room is relatively well kept, although bare of almost any personal touches, save a few beautiful weapons mounted on the wall. The door across from the bed opens gently, and Inzo's head peeks around the corner quietly, as if not to disturb me. The second his eyes meet mine, everything floods back to me, and it's all I can do not to sink back under the covers of the bed. Enzo opens the door wider once he sees I'm awake, and for a moment we just look at each other. I don't know if I have a name for the strange blend of feelings that blooms in my chest while I look at Enzo looking at me. I'm the first to break the intense eye contact, looking down at my hands. I don't know what to say, or how to try and make any of this better. It's humiliating to know that Enzo saw parts of me I've tried so desperately to keep hidden, and yet somehow there's nobody else I trust more. You must be hungry, Enzo says matter-of-factly, his tone quieter than I've ever heard it. My stomach growls in response, and I fight the surge of embarrassment that follows. Kind of, I say slowly. What time is it? I ask, looking out the window. You've been asleep for 10 hours, Enzo replies, jumping right to the heart of my question. I snap to attention at his response. I've been sleeping for 10 hours? I echo incredulously. Hence why you must be hungry, he responds. Silence falls again as we look at each other, and my heart begins to gallop in the quiet. Why isn't he saying anything? Doesn't he have questions? Enzo turns on his heel suddenly and disappears from the doorway, leaving me to listen to the creak of the stairs as he descends them. I groan, burying my face in my hands. I can't even begin to figure out how to navigate this situation, especially with someone like Enzo, who isn't exactly Mr. Feelings in the first place. I'm about to slide out of the bed and follow him downstairs when I hear the creak of the staircase again, and Enzo appears in the doorway, balancing 2 plates. He starts, seeming unsure of himself. I made you, us, breakfast. It takes me a moment to process this sudden change in him. When we first met, Enzo seemed arrogant, selfish, and completely amoral. Then, he seemed more like a cornered wolf, loyal and brave, but hurting, biting anyone who got too close. This Enzo seems sweet. I smile at him and realise he has yet to cross the threshold of the room at all, seeming to want my permission despite the fact that I'm sitting in his bed. I pat the bed next to me, scooting over so there's room for both of us, and watch in wonder as the olive of his cheeks ruddy into a deeper pine green. Enzo sits beside me, careful to keep at least 6 inches of space between us at all times. The bed shifts under the addition of his weight as he places the plates in front of us. I grab one of the leftover pastries from yesterday, chewing slowly as Enzo watches me. I'm sorry, I blurt out through the pastry, sending crumbs all over the bed. Enzo tries to turn his laugh into a cough, undoubtedly trying to spare me some embarrassment as I turn crimson. I quickly swallow the rest of the pastry in my mouth, furiously brushing crumbs from the bed. Well, I'm sorry I spit all over your bed, but I'm also sorry about last night, I say, amending my previous statement. The laughter dies in Enzo's throat. I open my mouth to continue, but Enzo stops me. I'm the one who should be sorry. I raise my eyes to his, surprised to hear such blatant emotion in his voice. And I am, he continues, looking away from me. I'm terribly sorry for the way I behaved, the way I treated you last night. I have no idea what came over me, and I want you to know that I never wanted to hurt you." He lets out a heavy sigh, running his hands over his face as if to wipe the emotion off it. "I acted like a fool, and I'm so sorry for the pain I caused you." He finishes, looking at the bed. I blink through my shock, finally finding my voice. "It's not your fault, Enzo," I tell him. His eyes find mine, looking as shocked by my words as I feel by his. "I was stubborn, and I pushed you too hard. I'm sorry," I say softly, hoping he knows how much I mean it. We sit for a moment, the intensity burning between the two of us. I breathe deeply, trying to summon the courage I need to begin my story, when Inzo starts talking. "My father died 2 years ago. In many ways I was robbed by it, not because I loved him. No one could ever love a bastard like that. He thought I was weak and worthless, and I trained and trained so that I could prove him wrong, prove that I was worthy of the air I breathe. He died before I could prove that I was stronger than he ever was. He died before I could kill him myself." For the next hour, I sit quietly beside Enzo as he details the abuse he endured at the hands of his father. He tells me about his scars and his nightmares and his accident and the shame he's felt at not being able to do all of the things he once could. He cries as he tells me about Sweet Deagu, his deaf baby brother, and how his father killed him for being different, and I cry with him. Inzo talks until he seems to run out of breath, and I can't help myself as I crawl over the plates of food between us and into his lap, wrapping my arms around his neck and pressing him to me in a tight hug. Inzo stiffens at first, seeming unsure of the contact, before his arm wraps around me gently, as if I might break if he's too rough. He rests his head in the crook of my neck, and I squeeze him tighter, his uneven breaths bouncing off the hollow of my neck. I pull back from the contact slightly, enough that I can look into Inzo's face. His eyes find mine, and I take my time admiring the shimmering topaz laced with honey and amber. My fingers float to his face, grazing his cheek gently. "You're a good orc, Enzo," I tell him softly. "You are not your father. You've been through so much, and I'm so sorry. But I'm glad you're who you are." "You're not alone," I promise him quietly. "You have me, and you'll never be without me again." Inzo doesn't drop my gaze as he leans into my touch, studying my face with a raptness that makes heat flare in my cheeks. "Is it okay to ask about your wound?" he asks me tenderly, still studying my face. The fact that he would be so willing to bear everything to me without my story in return pulls at my heart, and I smile sadly. Inzo seems to read everything in my face, and he shifts me gently off of his lap and back onto the bed beside him, still under his arm, but with plenty of room to breathe. "His name was Boyd," I begin. I tell Enzo about the way women, and even young girls, were treated in my bunker. Not every bunker is the same, of course, but many were content to use the bodies of women as currency, and mine was one such bunker. Boyd took a liking to me when I was around 13, and with both of my parents dead, I was his to claim. I had my first blood a few years later, and that's when I was forced to marry him. Up until we married, he never forced himself on me. Instead, he beat me and forced me to watch the ways in which other women in camp were used. It was his way of priming me, ensuring that I would only fight back as much as he liked. I still don't know if it was worse being Boyd's wife or not. As his property, no other man had rights to me, which meant I escaped some of the more brutal situations of the women around me. On the other hand, Boyd was a monster in his own right. It got to a point where he couldn't finish unless I was crying, and he had all manner of ways of making me cry. I recount all of this to Enzo quietly, trying not to give him too many details, whether for his sake or mine, I'm not sure. I tell him about the day Irish and Loki raided the bunker, and how Boyd was either arrogant or stupid enough to put a gun in my hand, not realizing I'd turn it on him. I tell him about the way it felt to finally kill him, and about the way I was prepared to die at the hands of those I believed to be monsters, just so I could end Boyd's miserable life. I tell Inzo that I've never been with anyone physically other than Boyd, and how the very idea of intimacy sends me back to that dank, dark bunker. Enzo holds me the whole time, his fingers tracing idle patterns on the insides of my palms. I can tell by the changes in his breathing that he's furious, but he doesn't react. He allows me space to speak, to feel, to simply be. I would kill for this clan. I would kill and die for anyone here who needs me. I finish. Especially Forrest, and especially you. He stays silent for a few moments, before shifting me down carefully so that I'm lying in his bed once more. Inzo pulls away from me for the first time in hours to shift the plates of food off of the bed and onto the floor, but the lack of contact feels like a void. Within seconds, he's back, pulling the quilt over us as he lies down beside me, idly running his fingers through my hair. I glance at the window and realise that somehow night has fallen all over again. Aren't we quite the pair? I joke, trying desperately to lighten what has been the heaviest, most exhausting day I've had since joining the clan. Two broken souls who finally found each other. Inzo smiles into the top of my head, wrapping a protective arm around me as he murmurs, "Yes, we are." I can't help the heaviness of my eyes, and I drift off to sleep in Inzo's tight embrace, enveloped in smoky pine sap and wild forest flowers. Earth is pretty much a desolate wasteland since the orcs came over from Protheka, and being a woman, the best you can hope is to be someone's property. Now, after my curvy body catches Corthar's eye, he'll claim me, and I'll serve him, in any way he pleases.
You're mine now. Listen to this story and more when you get the complete Orc Warriors of Protheka audiobook and ebook bundle.
40 books, 19 audiobooks, 19 ebooks. You even get one free novella and one free audiobook.
All for a shocking 90% off.
Protheka's magic is eternal, and the complete Orc Warriors of Protheka bundle will bring over 100 hours of that magic to you.
Chapter 22. Inzo. Something's changed between Karissa and me, and I can't say that I am upset by it. I haven't been known in the past for my ability to change, and yet this human woman has transformed me in some manner. It's an odd feeling because I can't quite place my finger on it. I don't know what has shifted, but I feel more aware around her. I subconsciously track her moves, just watching her when she's around, and I know that she does the same to me. Karissa doesn't think I notice the way she watches me, but I do. It's not like before when she was trying to figure me out. There's no curiosity in her eyes as she inspects me. Instead, it's more like understanding. I think that's why I tolerate it. I see her every day now. No more are the days when I try to kick her out of my house. In fact, on the days that she's busy, I even seek her out. I feel a little empty when I haven't seen her after a short period of time, and it's managed to drag me out of my isolation. The companionship has been nice, especially now that I know how well she understands me. I don't think I could go back to sitting around alone even if I decided I wanted to. I would ache for her too much. The easy way she makes me laugh and the comfortable way I can talk to her. She's affected me so much that I'm voluntarily attending more events with the clan. Today, there is a meeting of the council, and for the first time in months, I didn't decline Loki's invitation to join. "Enzo," my cousin roars as I enter the room, and I'm almost surprised by the light grin that stretches across my lips as he comes to embrace me. I pat his back with my good arm. "You made it." "I thought it was time," I answer, surprised to see that Irish and are absent as he leads me further into the room. I almost freeze as I see the elders, though. I recognize the first elder seated at the head of the council table, and I can't stop the snarl that graces my lips. The anger that flares through me is fueled by shock as I didn't expect to see him. He retreated away from the eyes of the clan after my father's death, and the age shows terribly on his face. Bazaar doesn't notice my intense gaze as he continues to converse with his neighbors, but that doesn't matter. I don't need him to see me before I rip his throat out. "Easy, cousin," Loki whispers to me as he guides me into the chair at his side. Others don't see Bazaar as clearly as I do. He had always maintained a neutral stance in the public eye, even keeping my and Loki's father civil most of the time. It's why he is well known and respected. For some reason, no one seemed to find it odd when he disappeared, though, and it feels as if I am the only one that sees him for what he truly is. A snake. "Where is Elder Hud?" I grind out, flexing my hand to control my anger. "Elder Bazaar has stepped up to take his place. I actually asked him to, since he has the most experience of anyone in our clan, and I need his wisdom to guide me. I want to tell Loki how stupid he is being, how Elder Bazaar cannot be trusted, but I bite my tongue. I don't spill out my protests against the Elder as I once would have, and I realize that I truly am not the same brash orc I was before. It might be because of Karissa, I realize. She matters to me, and my actions will cause consequences for her. I can't put her in harm's way just because I don't always think things through, and I let that calm me. Instead, I chew it over in my mind, trying to decide how to take action on my beliefs. I'm almost certain that Bazaar had something to do with my father's death, and because of his untrustworthy nature, I don't want Loki to lean on him. Then again, I don't know any of the details for certain, and I can't say my father was the most respectful and level-headed man. At the end of the day, my father isn't a concern of mine anymore. He has been out of my life for some time now, so I try to admit to myself that Bazaar might be worth listening to as he climbs to his feet. Silence falls over the room as he starts to speak in his gravelly voice. "Welcome all. Now that our chieftain has arrived, I believe it is time for us to begin the meeting of the council." Loki smiles and sits up straighter in his chair but doesn't stand. He doesn't have to in order to command a room. "As you all know, we are encountering troubles from our foes of the Windcleaver clan. I have dispatched Irish and there to destroy the base thoroughly, but after recent events, I have determined it necessary for us to consider our current security." He leans back, signaling to the others that he is open to any ideas. He doesn't have to pose a question, as we all understand what it is. How do we better protect our people? The murmurs around the room and few suggestions are weak, and I find my mind wandering back to my own encounter with the Windcleaver orcs. I haven't thought about it, but at his mention I remember the cloaked figure I encountered. I wonder if he is on the base now, or if he even is still alive and accepted by the Windcleaver clan. What will happen to him? Will I ever learn why he helped me? These questions tumble over in my mind as the other orcs discuss, and I zone in and out, only trying to keep up with the conversation enough to stay informed about our most recent events. All in all, the meeting is rather boring, and I find it a relief when it is finally over. "I don't know how much help that was," Loki admits as we step outside. "I fear that I still have a problem on my hands." "Time will bless you with a solution," I respond, looking off toward the base's center. I'm itching to go find Karissa. "Come eat with me! It's nice to see you out, Enzo!" I start to shake my head when a familiar scent washes over me, and I whip my head in the opposite direction of where I had been looking. Carissa and Mary are approaching, and my stomach clenches at the sight of her. "Hey," she says gently, and I can barely stop myself from reaching out to her. "Mary told me you would be here. I thought it would be nice for us all to eat together." I nod. "I agree," I breathe out, soaking her in. Just being near her soothes my soul, and I know that she must feel it too. Though we haven't discussed the changes in our relationship, her behavior has shown me that she feels closer to me too. Our connection has blossomed, turning soul deep. And although we haven't put a label on anything, I know that what I have with Karissa is special. "Let's go back to Loki's house then. I've already started preparations," Mary says, breaking through the charged air. I fall into step behind the girls next to Loki, and slowly they drift ahead of us a little as they whisper. I don't mind as long as I get to be near Karissa, but I don't realize how wrapped up in her I am until Loki breaks through my thoughts. Are you and Karissa together? And there it is. The question I'm not sure how to answer as I stare at my cousin. Are we?
Chapter 23. Karissa. I'm barely listening to Mary as she talks about her workday with me, my body too focused on Inzo's presence behind me. I can't help it as I turn to look at her, but while my head is twisted in her direction, my eyes are darting to the side to look at the two orcs behind us. They've both stopped walking, and their conversation has grown rather animated. I'm curious what they are talking about, but I know Enzo will fill me in later. I know that look. Mary touches my shoulder, bringing me out of my thoughts. I shake my head, trying to hide my expression as I look back forward. We keep walking, and I'm thankful for it so I can try to cover up whatever she saw. You always have your eyes on Enzo. Well, I guess I can't cover that up. You care for him? Her words make my chest squeeze tight. Are you two finally together? And with that, all the air whooshes out of me. All the nervous energy compresses into something that steals my breath away, and I suddenly can't contain the disappointment in my voice as I mutter, "No." Mary raises her eyebrows at me. "No." I shake my head. There's a connection. I know we can both feel it, but we haven't talked about our relationship. There's no label, and while the way he treats me is different, we haven't discussed the way we feel about each other. She blows out a breath. Well, you're clearly in love. My throat constricts a little at the thought, but I manage to confess. I know I am in love. My lips curl a little at the words, and it feels so good to confess. Then what's the problem? My eyes dart back to make sure the other two aren't too close to us. It would ruin me if Inzo heard us talking about this, and I don't want him to change the way he acts around me just because I made things weird. I think one of the reasons I haven't brought our relationship up to him is because I'm afraid. I don't want things to change between us. Not really. Through his actions, I know he cares about me, and that is enough for me. At least that's what I've told myself. I'm not sure that he feels the same. Mary scoffs at that. That is crazy. He obviously cares about you. I shake my head. That doesn't matter if he isn't ready to admit his feelings for me, or even worse, if he doesn't want a relationship, especially with a human. She rolls her eyes. He spends every day with you. Why would he all of a sudden decide he doesn't like humans? I shrug. I don't know, but he wasn't very fond of me when we first met. I've just accepted he's grown used to me, but that doesn't mean he wants me in that way. Then ask him. I freeze, the idea making my whole body tremble. What? Mary comes around in front of me, touching my arms gently. You will never know if you don't ask him, and I don't know about you. Her eyes get this faraway look like she's remembering something I don't understand. I'd rather know than torment myself. I do want to know, but it's the rejection aspect that has me biting my tongue. I don't know if I'm ready to take on that kind of risk. Karissa, Mary says sternly, commanding my attention. I blink, looking back at her. Would you rather go on without him knowing how you feel? For him to maybe think that you are not interested in him and choose an orc woman instead? Her words feel like knives in my gut. The idea of Inzo with anyone else is too much for me to bear, and I gasp out, no. Exactly. He may not know you feel this way about him, may think you don't even like orcs the same way you are thinking about him. You are sabotaging your chances with him by letting your fears rule you, and because of them you might lose him. Though her words sting, I know she is right. I have to be honest with Enzo, and I think I'd rather hear from him how he feels about me than being blindsided later on. I suck in a deep breath and nod. You're right. I need to face my fears, and I think I'm ready to do that. I need to know how he feels about me. Mary links her arm through mine as she leads us the rest of the way to her house. There's no harm in trying. I don't bother to correct her, as I think of plenty of ways it could hurt. But then she adds, "He obviously likes you, so I wouldn't be worried." I hold on to those words through lunch as I sit quietly next to Enzo. He's never been a particularly talkative orc, but he seems to be absent all through the meal. I notice how his gaze goes unfocused as Mary and Loki talk, trying to engage one of us. I can't help wondering why his mind is elsewhere. I try to talk to him, as does Loki, but his answers are merely grunts. He's not interested in participating with the rest of us, and it makes my stomach twist violently. I have to assume that whatever Loki said to him on the walk here is weighing heavily on his mind. I want to ask him what it was, but I won't do so in front of Loki and Mary. It was obviously meant to be private, and if Inzo wishes to share it with me, it won't be here. As we help clear the table and say our goodbyes, I try to gather up the courage to ask him on the walk home. I don't have to work today, and I know that he's going to walk with me. He has every day for a little while now. As I try to find the right words to say, though, my mind draws a blank, and our walk stays silent. His arm brushes against mine occasionally, and an electric thrill shoots through my body. I find some relief that he's not shying away from me. My house comes into view, and I know that I am running out of time. Mary's voice echoes in the back of my mind, and it pushes me to finally turn to Inzo. I need more time to sort out what I'm going to say, but I need to commit to talking to him or I'll avoid it altogether. "Do you want to have dinner tonight?" I ask him. He nods, not really focusing on me, so I force out, "There's something I want to talk to you about." That seems to get his attention as he swivels toward me. His eyes search mine, and my heart thunders as he seems to take forever to respond. "There's something I've been wanting to talk to you about as well," he admits. And there is so much raw emotion in his voice that I want to turn and run. I've never been one to hide away when things get difficult. Hell, I was the one that forced myself onto Inzo, as a friend, of course, because I knew he needed someone. Yet as I stare up at him, my body is screaming at me to run. I don't know if somewhere in my mind I expect him to turn me down, but my brain is telling me that I'd rather never know than having this conversation with him. Again, I think of what Mary said about him being with another person, and I know I can't prolong this anymore. As terrified as I am, I need to hear the truth from him, and clearly, he has something to say to me soon. Gods help me that it's not going to shatter me. He licks his lips as we continue to stare at each other, and a faint smile pulls at his mouth. He shrugs, asking me, "Why not now?" I can barely swallow the dozens of reasons why I'm not ready for this, and force myself to find an ounce of courage. He's right. There's no time better than now to bare my soul and potentially break my heart. Chapter 24. Karissa. "Do you want to come in?" I force out, and my heart kicks up in speed. I swear my body is rioting at the idea, but I swallow it all back, hoping that Inzo can't see it. Yeah. I lead him inside as I clamp my hands together in front of me to keep them from trembling. I know that was right when he said that we should talk now, just like how Mary encouraged me to get it over with. That doesn't make it any easier as I swallow against the fear building in my throat. He closes the door behind him, and the noise almost makes me jump right out of my skin. What is wrong with me? When have I ever been this on edge? Sucking in deep breaths, I perch myself on the arm of a thick chair close to a window in my living room. I'm too antsy to fully sit, and I feel like if I stare outside, I'll be able to trick my body into calming down. It doesn't entirely work because I just keep thinking about fleeing out the window. I try to command my body to calm down, but it seems that there are some things that I cannot simply will to happen. I do force my eyes back to Enzo, who has taken a seat on the couch. He's staring off into the space in front of him, but he seems to feel my eyes on him as he turns to look back at me. Just his gaze roaming my face is enough to make all the air in my lungs whoosh out, and I struggle to breathe, especially as he shifts to fully face me. He pats the spot next to him on the couch, and I'm holding my breath as I move to sit in front of him. I need to say something, but I can't seem to form words. Inzo takes my hand in his good one, his fingers caressing mine and making any half-formed thought disintegrate in my mind. "Do you want a label?" he blurts out, his voice more panicked than his movements suggest. I blink at him, shocked. Out of all the things, I hadn't expected this. Not because I don't want one, but because I'd rather hear how he feels about me than defining what we call each other to others. It strikes me then that this must be what Loki told him. He and Mary probably have discussed our growing relationship together, and he encouraged this. Why do you ask that? My words are hesitant as I slip my hands free of his, hoping that he doesn't answer what I expect he will. I just don't think the word friends defines us well. Don't you think we need a better label? I'm surprised by the way my heart sinks, but I can't help it. This isn't an admission of his love for me. This is a clarification in terminology for when we are around others. Then I dissect his words more, realizing he didn't say we are more friends. He just said we aren't friends. At this, I consider Mary's words more, wondering if he, in fact, has found someone else as he's come out of his shell. Anger, hurt, and jealousy rise up in me, and I bite out, "I'd rather not have a label." I twist away from him, trying to maintain my emotions, but the burning at the back of my throat is hard to ignore. How could this be his reason? He doesn't want to even call me his friend? I'm trying to steady my breath, wanting more than anything to kick Enzo out. I can't believe that I was going to take a leap of faith to tell him how I feel, and yet he's asking me like this to define our relationship. I thought we were at least friends. I'm so lost in my own whirlwind of overwhelming emotions that I don't even realize how much he's turned away from me until he speaks again. "You don't like me?" My head snaps in his direction, caught so off guard by his question. Out of all the things, I didn't think that was something that even mattered to him. More so, I thought he didn't like me, so why does it matter if I like him? We aren't even friends. Then his gaze turns to me, and I see everything I need to. Surprise colours his face, but hurt swirls in his eyes. Shame heats my face as I stare at him, and I wonder if maybe I didn't understand what he was saying in the first place. His question circles in my mind, and as I try to examine it, it hits me. He thought I liked him when he asked about the label. Did Mary say something to him? My cheeks burn in embarrassment, but I need to make sure we are on the same page here. "Who told you that?" I ask, needing to know if he is already aware of my feelings for him. He doesn't answer immediately, instead staring down at his hands like he's trying to grasp the answer. The air grows stiff between us as the silence turns awkward, and I know that the two of us being in our own heads only makes things worse. I don't know what he's thinking, and I'm still not sure he knows how I feel about him. I think it's time to finally just tell him how I feel when he turns to me with a soft, apologetic smile and says, "I'm doing this wrong, aren't I?" "Doing what?" I ask, shaking my head. He takes my hand again, and as he sucks in a deep breath, I realise he is shaking a little. "Karissa, I'm not well versed in how to talk about emotions, but I wanted you to know how I feel about you. I thought if we put a label on our relationship, that would be a good way for you to know how I see. But I was wrong." He swallows hard, continuing, "I have developed incredible feelings for you. There is a soul-deep connection between us that I can't deny, nor do I want to. I've never felt so happy or connected to anyone. You bring me great comfort, and I can't lose you just because I'm too afraid to tell you how I feel." My whole body is shaking, but I have to hear the words. My voice trembles as I ask, "Do you love me?" My heart leaps to my throat as his thumbs brush across the insides of my wrists, and I can't say I've ever seen such a look of pure terror on an orc's face as he takes me in, His lips part, and I swear I'm going to faint. If love means all those things, he breathes, then I do. I've never loved anyone before, so I can't be sure, but I do know that I've never felt anything like this, either. I don't even realise that I'm crying until his fingers move to brush the tears free from my cheeks, but the simple gesture is enough to break me free from my stunned silence. I lunge forward, throwing my arms around his neck. I love you too, I mumble against his shoulder, his arm coming up to encircle my waist. I bury myself against his chest, floored by his words. When I finally do pull back, he keeps me close to him, unable to let me go. Our faces are so close we are basically touching, and with a fearful gasp, Inzo closes the distance between us. I sink into the kiss, pulling him harder against him. Nothing has ever felt so good, and I need more. I need this orc like I need oxygen, and without thinking, I slide my leg across his lap. He groans as his hand slides down my body, grasping at my hips, and then, with what seems like great strength, he rips away from me. Even with half-hooded eyes, he pulls away as I move back in. "Aren't you scared?" he asks me, and I grin at him. For the first time in my life, I'm not.
Chapter 25. Inzo. Love, I think to myself, mulling the word over in my head. It doesn't feel like enough. A silly four-letter word, one tossed around by nearly every human and orc on the planet. It feels so ordinary, so commonplace compared to her. Nothing about her, or the way she makes me feel, is ordinary. I lose myself in the feeling of her lips on mine, in the heat her tiny body creates between the two of us. It's difficult to maintain control of myself. She makes me greedy, and while this contact soothes my soul in ways I can't even begin to describe, I want more. More of her. But even through the drug-like haze Karissa creates in my mind, I remember her story, how hard she's battled just to keep her body her own. It's with that story in mind that I reluctantly pull away from her embrace, just enough that I can find her deep brown eyes. "Aren't you scared?" I ask her, trying to swallow the dryness in my throat. As badly as I want to be close to her, to know every inch of her, her comfort will always be more important. I will never, ever let her feel unsafe again. Carissa's face breaks into a smile, wide and genuine and pure. My heart aches at the sight of such joy on her face, and I can't help the swell of pride that I feel. Her story, her victory is hers alone. But to keep that joy in the face of all she's been through is a triumph of the highest merit. And the fact that her joy is due, even in some part, to me, it's enough to bring me to my knees. "When will you figure out that you aren't nearly as scary as you think you are, Enzo?" she murmurs, grazing her fingers over my cheek as I gaze at her. I can't help the smile that rises in response, my fearless, vicious little warrior. Of course she isn't scared of me. She kisses my cheek gently, then kisses the other, and then the tip of my nose. This type of tenderness is new to me. There's some small, old part of me screaming that I should be embarrassed to show such softness, to allow myself to be babied in this way. It goes silent quickly. "That's not to say this is easy, of course," Karissa says softly, still looking at me. "I'm still very new to this," she continues, motioning between the two of us. "And I don't really know what to expect, which is scary in its own right." I nod in response, watching her typically rosy cheeks deepen slightly in color. Gods, I love that color. "We will never do anything you don't want to do," I tell her, placing a gentle hand under her chin to raise her eyes to mine. "You always get to decide. The only thing I want is to be close to you." Carissa smiles again and runs her fingers over my lips as if to quiet me. "And you," she whispers, bringing her forehead forward to rest on mine. I close my eyes, reveling in sharing this space, this moment with her. You excite me, Inzo, she says tenderly. I didn't think I'd ever feel this way. I didn't think I'd ever want to be with someone, but I want you in every way there is. I pull away from her again, studying her warm eyes, looking for any hint of hesitation. When I find none, I let my eyes rove over the rest of her face, admiring her high cheekbones etched like birds' wings, the luminescent glow of her tan skin, the soft yet determined set of her lips. I love you, I whisper to her. Another smile spreads across her face, and I lean in to catch it with a kiss. The taste of her smile is intoxicating, and I let my hand rove up her back as her hands grasp the back of my neck, pulling me tighter against her. I've never been close with someone quite like this either. Truthfully, I've had some dalliances, which is customary for many orc warriors, but never anything like this. Never anything with such emotion. All of the senses I've spent years honing for violence, all of my predatory instincts are now focused solely on creating an atmosphere of pleasure for Karissa. I hear her heartbeat skip and then speed as I run the pads of my fingers across her collarbones and up her neck to trace the line of her jaw. Interesting. I repeat the motion in reverse, sliding my fingers down her neck and over her collarbone towards her shoulder, and feel her breathing hitch under the delicate skin of her neck. I wonder. I move my lips from hers, kissing the corner of her mouth, before dotting soft kisses along her jaw. I pause before I kiss the spot where her jaw and neck connect, not wanting to move too quickly. When her body rises to meet my lips, a satisfied smile creeps onto my face as I kiss down the delicate skin of her neck, Carissa's breaths coming heavier in my ear as I drop kisses across her exposed collarbone. I raise my gaze to hers, wanting to weigh the results of my little experiment before going further. Karissa gazes down at me, her eyes glassy with desire and cheeks flaming in response to my touch. There's something primordial about the smug delight that rushes through me at my effect on her, at how good I can make her feel. I'm not sure where the line is for what is too much, so I linger where I am, placing kisses on Carissa's lips, neck, and collarbones. Carissa's fingers dig into the back of my neck as her body arches up to meet mine, my hands finding her hips in response to the sudden friction created by her movement. Enzo, she sighs into my ear. I have to concentrate on not grinding against her at the sound of my name on her lips. I'm almost worried I don't have what it takes to be patient when Karissa pulls away from our embrace, still in my lap. Should we go to my bedroom? She asks shyly. In a second, I'm on my feet, Karissa cradled in my arms as I make my way to her bedroom. She yelps at our sudden lurch into movement before descending into giggles as she flings her arms around my neck. You could at least pretend not to be so excited, she teases through her laughter. I grin down at her as we cross the threshold into her room. Pretend. With you. Never.
From the depths of the darkness of Protheka,
Or clawing up from the realms of fantasy,
come the most fearsome beasts you have ever seen.
these monsters are done watching from the shadows.
Now, as they step into the light, something unexpected grips them.
Something even they can't fight off.
Love,
Vampires.
demons,
Dark elves.
gods.
Minotaurs. Creatures of light and dark.
They will protect their mates.
Do whatever needs to be done.
Morally grey heroes who will burn the world to protect the women who love them.
10 audiobooks.
Fall into over 60 hours of fantasy romance.
20 ebooks.
Over 1 million words of these brutes who will protect their women.
Even if they might destroy themselves in the process.
Get the immersive Protheka Fantasy Romance Bundle.
For 80% off, right now, dive into Protheka at a once-in-a-lifetime discount.
The first bundle to offer both ebooks and audiobooks on worldsofprotheka.com. Protheka's magic is eternal, and this Romantasy bundle will make it endless. Chapter 26. Karissa. My body is buzzing as Inzo sets me down on the bed. He's so deliberately gentle in the way he kisses me, in the way his body wraps around mine, that it's almost heartbreaking. I've never been handled with such tender care and concern. Despite all of Inzo's best efforts, I can't help but freeze up at the thought of going any further than simply kissing him. My mind and body seem to be warring with one another, and when I allow myself to think too hard about what comes next, I can feel panic start to set in. So instead of allowing my mind to ruin anything, I allow myself to be pulled in entirely by Inzo, by how good he makes me feel.
Sorry for the interruption. I know you were gearing up for a steamy scene, but it's way too hot for this platform.
If we want to keep sharing our stories for free, we have to abide by this platform's guidelines.
To get the full unabridged audiobook, go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Browse through unabridged audiobooks, countless ebooks and bundles offered at a discount.
If the thought of me whispering all the dirty details into your ear isn't enticing enough, use discount code YouTube30 to get 30% off of all digital products.
Story after story, audiobook after audiobook, the Worlds of Protheka are waiting for you.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
But unabridged, it's unforgettable.
Chapter 27. Enzo. My heart is soaring like it has never before, and my body is on fire. I can't believe how amazing it felt to be with Karissa, and as I trail my hand down her bare flesh, my blood sings out for more. I can't push her, though. I know what she's been through, and I want to give her time. So instead I scoop her up, able to balance her with one arm. She yelps as I stand up, clinging to me so hard that I chuckle. I suppose that 7 feet would be an unfortunate drop for such a small human. "Enzo," she hisses, and it only makes me laugh harder as I slip through her house. I've been here so much lately that I know it like the back of my hand. "What are you doing? Put me down?" I sigh as if she's inconveniencing me, though she isn't. She bats at my chest and I flip her to stand on her feet as we enter the bathroom. I turn on the shower to heat up the water as she stares at me with raised eyebrows. Giving her a smug smile, I grip her waist and lift her under the hot water. Her shriek only makes me grin wider, and she narrows her eyes at me. "What is all this?" "I thought we could use a shower," I explain simply, and the look on her face catches me by surprise. I knew she wasn't used to being taken care of, but the look of surprise and the pinprick of tears in her eyes tell me how much she has been neglected. It nearly overwhelms me, so I grab her shampoo and start to clean her hair. Her protests are feeble as I work my long fingers through her hair, massaging her scalp. She's practically leaning back on me by the time I rinse her hair clean, and I start on her body. As much as Samara and I want to finish what these two characters have started, it looks like this chapter is about to get too hot for this platform to handle.
Unfortunately, we have to pause here because their guidelines won't allow us to reveal the spiciest details.
To keep bringing you these free audiobooks, we have to follow their rules.
But don't worry. You can experience the full, unabridged version over at worldsofprotheka.com, where the boundaries of passion and fantasy collide.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off any of our unabridged audiobooks set in the rich and immersive worlds of Protheka.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
With these scenes, it will be unforgettable.
Chapter 28. Karissa. Something unleashed from Inzo as I encouraged him to be less gentle with me. He wasn't so worried about hurting me, and I finally got to see the rougher side of him from when I first met him. He took me in every room in my house on nearly every surface, marking my home the same way he was with me. I loved it, though, because every movement was filled with adoration for me. Everything Inzo did was to please me, and he continued to pleasure me deep into the night until we were both exhausted and hungry. "Oh," he huffs as he rolls on his back on my bed. My legs are still shaking from the mind-blowing pleasure he just sent rushing through my body, and his hand slides down my trembling thighs as he catches his breath. I know he must be tired, especially after all that he has done. Even for an orc, his stamina is impressive, and I would complain about how long he could go if it wasn't all centered on making me feel good. I crawl up on him, laying my head on his chest and tracing circles on him. "You are incredible," I murmur against him. He drops a kiss on top of my head. "I'm just giving you what you deserve." Tingles spread down my body as he says it, and I can't believe how lucky I am. I've found someone who worships me and gives me butterflies with every look and kiss. I never thought I could be with someone who made me feel this way. I had thought I would always feel hollow, but it seems that Inzo and I were able to reform each other. His stomach growls loudly, piercing the quiet of the room, and I roll back as laughter shakes through my body. It caught me off guard, and he jabs me with his elbow as I continue to chuckle. "You didn't feed me dinner," he complains. "Isn't that why you invited me over in the first place?" I poke him in the side. "I thought I fed you plenty." His eyes narrow at me. "That is not funny." Even though my cheeks are burning a little, I shrug. "You didn't seem to mind at the time." Inzo swats at me as I slip off the bed, and I manage to evade his grasp as I pull on some loose clothes. I can feel how sore I am as I move around now, but I don't mind. It's pleasant, and I don't shy away from it as I walk around. "Come on, we'll find you something to eat." He grumbles as he follows me through the house, having slipped back into his discarded pants. I don't mind that he chooses to leave the shirt on the floor. I'm rummaging through the fridge, pulling out containers of meats and cheeses and fruits when he comes up behind me. "This is a meagre dinner, in regards to what I've been giving you all afternoon." He plants a kiss against my neck. I twist around, pressing up against his body and running my fingers lightly against his chest. He leans into my touch, and I love seeing how much he wants me. "It's not all I have to offer," I whisper back, and he shoves me off of him with an angry gaze. I laugh, noticing how he adjusts his pants. "It'll do for now," he remarks, looking over the spread, and I flick my hair over my shoulder. "I'm glad you can get off your high horse long enough to see that." Enzo wraps his arm around me, lifting me up and putting me on the counter. "Since you want to be so sassy tonight, I think you need to be in time out." I stuck my tongue out at him, folding my legs underneath me. "I don't think that's the real reason." "Really?" he asks me, plucking a piece of fresh fruit free from its vine. He presses himself against me, pulling me closer to the edge of the counter before bringing the fruit to my lips. "What is the real reason?" I sink my teeth into the fruit, moaning as the sweet juices fill my mouth. I maintain eye contact with him as I drag my lips around it, brushing the edge of his fingers. His lips part, and I offer him a small smirk as I swallow. "I think you find me too tempting and you need to focus on eating." His eyes dart down. "Maybe I do." "No!" I bat his chest, pushing him back. "Eat real food, Inzo." He huffs. "I didn't think you'd complain." "It'll be no fun if you pass out because you're starving. I'm too small to lift a big orc like you, and I just know you'd land on top of me." Inzo snorts as he leans against the counter, pulling out slices of cheese to eat. "Again, I didn't think you'd complain about me being on top of you." "Haha, look who's full of jokes tonight." I crawl across the counter, watching the way his eyes widen, his hips twisting to press against the edge of the counter. There is nothing I can do around this man that wouldn't set him off. "Relax," I tell him. "I'm hungry too." He pushes the meat in my direction, and I pick out a few slices of my favourite. He watches me as I eat, but I'm not self-conscious because of it. I know he isn't judging me, and I have no problem gorging myself as I realise just how famished I am. Once we've emptied out my fridge, I lean back across the countertop, rubbing my bloated stomach. I can't remember the last time I've eaten so much. I laugh. Inzo snorts as he cleans up after us. "I know. I was worried for the base. I thought you might go on a ransacking rage once you saw all the food was gone." I lift my head up to glare at him. "Give me a few minutes to recover and I might." At that, he chuckles. You look like you're going to explode. I curl up on my side, burping. I feel like it too. Come. He tugs at me. Let's go to bed. I need to sleep. Sleep sounds wonderful, so I force myself off the counter. I jump down to the floor, the cold wood biting at my feet, and move toward the opposite cabinet. Just let me get some water first. I haven't moved from pulling a glass down when I feel Inzo's arm circle around my waist. Karissa? He breathes against my ear, tickling me. I chuckle as I twist to look at him. Yes? I hope that this isn't moving too fast, but I just don't think I can wait any longer. I'm holding my breath as I stare up at him, seeing how serious his face has turned. He looks nervous as he takes me in, and as he blows out a long breath, he blurts out, "Will you be my mate?" I had been on the base long enough to know how important mating is to orcs. It's more soulful than marriage, in my opinion, and the idea of being so bound to Enzo when just this morning I was worried he didn't even care for me makes my heart feel like it's going to explode. I understand if you aren't ready, he starts, and I realise I've been silent too long. I just thought, well, I love you so much, and I crash against him, my lips silencing him as he stumbles over his words. When I pull back to look at him, he's breathless, and I answer, "Yes." "Yes?" He breathes. "Yes," I repeat. "I want nothing more than to be your mate."
Chapter 29. Enzo. I hadn't lied to Karissa when I told her that I didn't think I could wait any longer to make her my mate. In fact, it killed me to wait long enough to plan this ceremony. Though she complained 2 days was not enough to pull everything together, she wasn't the only one that had complained. Loki asked me what the rush was, and Mary looked like she was thinking about strangling me when the two had come by the house. Still, I had held my stance that it could be done, and I devoted my last 2 days to helping, ignoring all the muttering behind my back. It wasn't that anyone had a problem with our union. In fact, all we had been hearing since the announcement was, "It's about time." No. The problem with most of the orcs, and especially the humans, around the base, was that they were upset with how small and simple the ceremony would have to be. As I stand at the edge of the room of our base's meeting center, though, I can only smirk. It's gorgeous here, but how could it not be? When my beautiful Karissa sets her mind to something, anything is possible. Look at me now after she had decided to take a chance on this stubborn old orc with an anger problem and a bit too much self-pity. I am a new man. "Enzo!" I turn toward Irish as he, Loki, and come in. I embrace them, and though I notice how Irish and exchange a glance, I ignore it. "It's the fastest turnaround for a celebration I've ever seen, cousin," Loki says as he takes it all in. "That maid of yours did a wonderful job." My cheeks ache from smiling so much, but I can't help it. I'm in love, and today is my mating day. She did. The hall has been transformed to have an altar at the front, flowers and ribbons tied along it to make a gorgeous display. The same flowers and ribbons are affixed to the ceilings and window panes and the backs of the chairs that have been put out for the guests. We had decided to keep the ceremony small, not that either of us cared. I proposed it to be just the two of us, but Mary had protested profusely at that idea. Karissa relented much faster than I did. We found a good middle ground, and I am very pleased as the chairs fill. It's nearly time for me to take my place at the front, and I take in one last sweeping view of the place. I know once Karissa enters, I will see nothing else. My skirt and robe swish across the ground as I march toward the altar. Loki was able to have the traditional wardrobe fashioned for me, so that I am framed by our clan's colors. The robes fit me loosely and expose my broad chest down to where the skirt is fastened to sit easily on my hips. There is no denying my strength with my muscles accentuated and my warrior panels sewn into the robes. It is meant to prove to my mate that I am worthy of protecting and providing for her. In reality, though, Karissa knows that I can't do anything without her. My physical strength is nothing for the way she makes me feel, and she's seen just how low I can spiral without her. The shaman stands next to me as I wait at the front of the room, and my mouth goes dry as the doors at the back open. My heart is thundering so hard in my chest that I can hear nothing else, and the second that Karissa walks in, I am sucked into her beauty. Her body is adorned with a tight dress woven out of fine, white silk. Flowers have been sewn across her frame and added to her hair, which is tied back to show off her beautiful face. I forget to breathe as she comes closer, and by the time she reaches me, I realize I am suffocating. I suck in a deep breath as she takes my hands, and she squeezes them gently. "Friends and family," the shaman calls to the gathered crowd. "You are here today to honor the mating union created by the gods, and to bless the couple as they continue to serve our warriors in the sky." A soft murmur of agreement echoes through the crowd as the shaman moves toward the ceremonial ribbons. They are the colors of the clan, tied together and adorned with past trophies that have kept our clan safe. He takes them, encircling Karissa and I with them. "Today, we bless you, Inzo of the Burning Sun clan, and Karissa Bones. The gods have bestowed upon you the honor of a mating bond, and before these people you have declared to accept it and give thanks to the gods for bringing you two together. Gods above, we thank you for each other and the honor the mating bond brings upon us," Karissa and I say in unison. "With these ribbons, I tie the two of you together," the shaman announces, "to show your dedication to each other and to this clan." He steps back once he is finished, knotting them into a loose circle. "With all of these people as your witness, please seal your union." At his words, I pull Karissa to me, pressing a kiss to her lips. There are cheers and teasing as I deepen the kiss, but I don't care. I could lose myself in this woman anywhere. When I finally pull away from her, everyone claps, and I take her hand in mine, leading her out of the room and out to the feast that had been set up. Our chairs are the tallest, and we transfer the ceremonial ribbons onto them, taking our seats as the guests filter out. I wait as everyone takes their seats, and before the food is passed out, I climb to my feet. I lift my filled goblet, announcing over the chatter to get everyone's attention. "Thank you all for coming." Those that hadn't originally seen me standing now do, and with every head turned in my direction, I say, "All of you know me, or at least who I used to be. I was never a man of feelings, or even thought." A few chuckled at that. I've always been one of action, and until recently I never slowed down enough to listen to my head or my heart. After my accident, I became reclusive, and Karissa saw that. She saw how much I was hurting, and though I didn't make it easy on her, she never left my side. I shake my head. Most of you know how I felt about humans coming to this clan. I saw them as weak liabilities. I didn't like it one bit. I can't help but smile as I look down at Karissa. I've eaten those words 10 times over since I've met my mate. She is the fiercest, kindest, smartest person I've ever met, and I don't mind being proven wrong about my notions by this beautiful woman. I nod my head at her to ask her to stand up. "If you would all join me in a toast," I lift my goblet higher, and everyone else reaches for their own. "To my mate, may she never lose patience with me, and to the gods, may they continue to bless us as we enter our mating union." Everyone shouts back to me in response, drinking fully from their goblets, and I set my down to cup Karissa's face. We are still standing at the center of everyone's attention, but I don't care as I lower my lips to hers for another kiss. It's sweet and long, and when I pull back, all I see is her beautiful smile. "Were you happy with the ceremony?" I whisper. She nods, grinning as she leans in to kiss me again. Judging by the cheering at the table, so did everyone else.
Chapter 30. Karissa. I squeal as Enzo tears after me through the base's centre. When he told me it was time to go home, I was excited, but when he slapped my bottom and told me he'd give me a head start, I didn't know what to think. His mischievous grin made me run. He chuckles deeply as he sweeps me up in his arm as we approach his house, his eyes twinkling. "You are so slow." "You are an orc." I slap his chest as he jumps onto his porch. It's not fair. Why were you chasing me anyway? Orc tradition, he murmurs as he kicks the door open. The male has to prove he's fast enough to catch prey, and that includes his mate. I wrinkle my nose. That sounds a little creepy. He nips at the tip of my nose. Maybe, but I thought it would be fun to listen to you scream while I chased you. You never stood a chance. He dumps me on the bed. Jerk, I mutter. A deep grin spreads across his face. I'll make it up to you.
This scene is about to get too steamy for this platform's comfort. And as much as we'd love to keep going, their guidelines say we need to stop here.
To continue releasing these free audiobooks on this platform, we've got to play by the rules.
The passion doesn't end here.
Visit worldsofprotheka.com to hear the full, uncut version of this fantasy romance, and every daring moment that YouTube can't handle.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off unabridged audiobooks in the Worlds of Protheka.
Don't let YouTube hold you back. Immerse yourself in a world of magic, danger, and unfiltered passion.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
Listen unabridged and you'll never want to go back. When he smiles down at me, my heart stutters and nearly stops. I can't believe how lucky I am now. With my mate by my side, I finally have the very thing I've always wanted. My own forever.